Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le Sénateur Ferguson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre. Madame le Sénateur Valois.
Présente.
Madame le Sénateur Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Pallett. Monsieur le Sénateur Mezek. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade. Monsieur le Connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen. Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Madame le Député Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Southern. Madame le Député de Grouville.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Lewis.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Tadier. Monsieur le Député Higgins.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Masson.
Présent.
Madame le Député Pinel.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Martin. Monsieur le Député de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Député Doublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Labbé.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Wickenden.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Sainte-Marie. Monsieur le Député Truscott. Monsieur le Député Young.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Ash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Guida. Monsieur le Député de Saint-Pierre. Monsieur le Député de la Trinité. Monsieur le Député de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Madame le Député La Hégara. Monsieur le Député Ayer.
Présent.
Madame le Député Pershar. Monsieur le Député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Député Owls. Monsieur le Député Pamplin.
Présent.
Madame le Député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute l'heure de l'opération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plut de commettre à le soin. Car nous t'en prions un homme et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne. Ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme en ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien. Et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi est le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lafondre.
Sir, the Chief Minister is attending a meeting on Ireland with the Polish ambassador and will be in the Assembly as soon as possible. I wonder if he may be marked excuse in the meantime, sir. Thank you.
Well, I think he's in the island, so he can be excused there, I'm sure. Won't mind that. Yes.
Monsieur le Sénateur Pallett.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Sir, the Connétable of Saint-Brelade and Deputy Truscott are attending a funeral of the wife of the former Constable of Saint-Brelade this morning and will be with us shortly.
All members will mark them excused in the circumstances.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Monsieur le député Tardier.
Présent.
Monsieur le député de la Trinité.
Default.
Madame le député Pershar.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Les États sont constitués. Very well. We now continue with public business. The next item is the draft Proceeds of Crime Amendment Number 7, Jersey Law P51, lodged by the Minister for External Relations and Financial Services, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Proceeds of Crime Amendment Number 7, Jersey Law 2000, a law to amend further the Proceeds of Crime Jersey Law 1999. The states, subject to the sanction of Her Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
So could my Assistant Minister act as rapporteur for this item, please?
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. So we continue at great pace our preparations for the forthcoming Moneyval assessment. And I'm sure I don't need to remind the Assembly just how important a positive assessment is for the financial services businesses in the island. So under the FATF methodology, I'll get that right in a second, we will be assessed against, we need to demonstrate that money laundering activities prosecuted in line with our jurisdictional risk profile. So for us, this means preventing criminals from exploiting some of the 33,000 companies registered here as part of the exploiting those businesses for money laundering purposes. Additionally, FATF methodology requires that penalties are not just applied against natural persons, but also against legal persons, which in plain speak are companies. Therefore, this proposition, if adopted, creates a new criminal offence for failing to prevent money laundering for legal persons, which undertake financial services businesses. Individuals would only be in scope for the new offence where they themselves act as financial services businesses under the Proceeds of Crime Law. For example, an example would be an accountant acting as a sole trader, or where an individual has consented or connived for money laundering to be committed within a company. So the proposition would enable a more appropriate attribution of criminal liability to companies where those companies failed to have prevented associated persons from money laundering. This, of course, means that for the offence to be triggered, there needs to be proof of money laundering. So it's important to note that with the introduction of the new offence, no new compliance requirements are required for the financial services industry to be introduced. All those requirements already exist. But for companies who do not adhere to those requirements and therefore allow money laundering to happen, they will be in scope for the new offence and can be prosecuted. However, it is crucial to highlight that the amendment provides companies with a reasonable step to defence by demonstrating that where money laundering has occurred, the company has adequately maintained and applied anti-money laundering procedures. So this amendment has been subject to pre-consultation with representatives from the main chain bodies and the Law Society of Jersey, followed by a full public consultation, during which no major concerns were raised. So the new offence would help make better to meet the criteria under the FATF methodology and presents a key building block to enhance the enforcement process and thus the overall anti-crime regime. So, and I make the proposition.
Are the principles seconded? Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy of St Mary.
Thank you, sir. And this is the first of 4 financial service-related propositions coming before us today. And if I may, so I'll make a generic comment now to avoid the need to repeat it. The panel is only too well aware of the image of the island as one engaged in financial service activities, sometimes referred to as tax haven status, and I apologise for using that outmoded expression, and understands the importance of the financial sector in Jersey being compliant with international standards and meeting the regulations of FATFA. It is pleased to have been a part of the numerous pieces of legislation this compliance brings, and to have had the opportunity to present its various comments papers to the States. In this lecture, I advise that over the last 4 years, the panel has presented a total of 15 comments papers to the Assembly in relation to such matters. And in addition to that, we have had briefings on even more pieces of legislation where we felt that a comments paper was unnecessary. The panel is extremely grateful to the officers for their work in providing detailed briefings to allow the panel to undertake its work. The panel is also aware of the upcoming assessment by Manival of the ongoing work that officers within the Financial Services Department still need to undertake. And I like to think that the panel has shown its commitment throughout its dealings to properly scrutinise all matters coming before us. To that extent, I'm grateful to the Minister, the Assistant Minister and the whole Financial Services team for their cooperation throughout this matter. I'm also grateful, obviously, sir, to my colleagues on the panel and to the previous chair of the panel and other members of the panel. And finally, and not least, sir, I wish to recall my appreciation to the present scrutiny officer and her predecessors for all the work they have done. Only last week, she was involved in balancing the need to issue 3 comments papers along with other requirements, and as with her other counterparts in scrutiny, we are all indebted to the fact that they go well beyond the call of duty in this connection. And finally, sir, there was yesterday, during the debate, reference to the role of scrutiny and certain questions as to how it saw itself. Certainly, as far as this panel is concerned, sir, I think we have demonstrated that we are indeed a critical friend. We have aimed to be constructive, and I'd like to think that the Minister's team have had no cause to doubt that. In addition to the financial services work, we have had to balance those requirements with other matters, and particularly in relation to external relations, we do receive briefings as a matter of confidentiality, and we very much respect that need, and I do not believe there's ever been cause to doubt our sincerity in that respect. Again, so I appreciate the efforts of the Minister in keeping us fully up to date on such matters, and I say I like to think so we have discharged our duties appropriately. So the matter in hand, sir, we have issued a comments paper on this matter, which I hope the members have the opportunity to read, and it's perhaps superfluous to say so, but we very much endorse the rationale behind this proposition and urge members to support it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the principles?
Sorry, sir, could I raise the default on the Deputy of Trinity?
Yes, the defo is raised on the Deputy of Trinity. Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles? I close the debate and call upon the Conetables who want to respond.
Thank you, sir. And I particularly appreciate the Deputy of St Mary's comments. And I'm a little disappointed that he feels that there should be anywhere in the Assembly be any question mark against his panel's integrity or commitment to assisting us, because nothing could be further from the truth. We've received nothing but the highest level of commitment from his panel, and his comments about being a critical friend are entirely true. He and his panel have raised a number of useful and points which we have taken on board, and we have had a number of extensive discussions which have aided our process in producing this legislation which is before the Assembly. And from a personal perspective, I can only express my deepest thanks for all the help and commitment that he and his panel have given our team during this difficult time that we've had in preparing the extensive amounts of legislation for the Moneyval process. So I would just like to thank him very much and his panel and for his help and commitment. I have no other comments, and therefore I call for the appel zone.
That is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. And I ask the greffier to open the voting. And members remotely, please participate in the normal way. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The principles have been adopted, 39 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions. I take it, Deputy of St Mary, your panel is not calling the matter in view of what you've said? Good. How do you wish to propose the articles in second readings?
With the leave of the Assembly, I'd like to propose them en bloc, if possible, please, sir.
Well, are they seconded for second
Yes, sir.
reading? Does any member wish to speak on the articles or any of them? No member wishes to speak. I close the debate. I propose to take this on a standing vote, given the indication given on the last vote. Members in favour, kindly show. Members against? I think Deputy Trinity and Deputy Pershard, should you wish to indicate a pro, I'd be content if you put your hands up instead of standing, if you wish. Thank you, Ron. Very well. Do you propose in third reading, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Is it seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in third reading? No member wishes to speak in third reading? Then I close the debate. And again, we'll do this on a standing vote. Members in favour, kindly show. Those against? It is passed in third reading. The next item is the draft sanctions and asset freezing amendment number 2, Jersey Law P53, lodged by the same minister, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Sanctions and Asset Freezing Amendment Number 2 Jersey Law 2000, a law to further amend the Sanctions and Asset Freezing Jersey Law 2019. The states, subject to the sanction of Her Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
Is your Assistant Minister taking this one as well?
Not this one. So we've got four
Minister.
pieces and we're dividing it up, as it were. So who could have imagined when we first started contemplating improvements to the sanctions law to ensure that there was further clarity so that we could be confident that it was compliant with FATF standards, that such technicalities and such piece of legislation would be in the international headlines. And I think that shows to us, sir, that even though these pieces of legislation can be technical and seem to be unrelated to islanders' everyday lives, when they are needed and when we face a global crisis as we do, the reverse becomes apparent. It is absolutely imperative that we in Jersey have legislation to give effect to ensure that we play our part together with the international community, as we've seen in regard to the economic fight against Putin's regime, and indeed we do. These amendments before us today will enhance that fight. They will provide further clarification to some descriptions. They will take pointers where we currently point to other pieces of legislation and put it on the face of Jersey legislation that can only be right and proper, again showing ourselves to be cooperative international partners and playing our part. So I hope that members will see that this draft law enhances and adds directly onto the face of the law descriptions of owned, held, controlled. It also deals with civil immunity and makes that clear. It changes some of the powers to amend via ministerial order. It deals with the implementation of exceptions and grounds for granting licenses, something which we know has become, again, in the fight against Putin in Ukraine, extremely important. It enhances the meaning of terrorism. It allows for automatic terrorist asset freeze designations. It limits the de-designation of terrorism asset freezes by ministerial order, and it expands reporting obligations in respect of attempts to breach or circumvent sanctions. So I commend the principles of these changes to the law to the Assembly.
Are the principles seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak? Deputy St Mary.
Thank you, sir. And members are pleased to know I don't intend to repeat the comments just made in relation to the previous proposition. We have on this occasion issued a comments paper that reinforces the comments just made by the External Relations Minister, and the panel asks the members to support this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? Senator Pallett.
So I just want to follow my chair of the Economic Affairs panel by saying that he mentions many other people who have been central to ensuring that this legislation and many other pieces of legislation have been properly scrutinised. I'd just like to add, because the chair was the ones that seems to miss out, that the chair, and I've got to say the previous chair as well, is have been exemplary in the work that they've done with the panel, and I think need to be commended for the work that they've done. I just want to add that if because I know it's been brought up in the past that maybe we haven't looked at detail at some of the legislation. I just brought along the proposition that we're debating right now, my copy, and as you can see, it is full of orange ink, because I wanted to fully understand from the Minister about what he was putting forward. He mentioned many changes in the legislation, and we did, I think, grill his officers and the Minister in some depth. In fact, I can't remember a briefing recently that hasn't overrun because of the time we felt we needed to fully understand what was being put before us. So if any members feel that this is in any way a rubber stamp exercise, I can assure you it's not. As my chair has said, the work that the officers have done in regards to putting some of these comments papers together, again, they needed to fully understand what they were putting together. So I thank them for their work as well. But I've got to add the cooperation we've had from the Minister and Assistant Minister, I've got to say, over my 18 months has been, I've used the words exemplary with the chair, I'll use the same with the Minister, have been exemplary, sir.
Deputy Sullivan.
Yes, sir. And I'll ask one of the questions I'm prone to asking myself, but this time I'll ask it publicly to see what the answers are. And the question is, we're coming up to an inspection, and therefore we are tightening up the laws and the rules around money laundering, etc. Why haven't we done this 5 years ago? What have the money launderers been getting away with for the last 5 years that we're now tightening up on? Would the Minister please explain?
Does any other member wish? Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. It's just, I note that for administrative reasons and understandable administrative reasons, a particular link and reference to European Community regulations is removed. But I was wondering if the Minister could confirm, please, whether this affects in any other way potential for EU sanctions to be brought in under law, as is the case at the moment. And it's just to confirm that this doesn't affect. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy Ward.
Yes, sir. This may be a question for regulations, but I think it's important to talk about it before we come to regulations so we know what we mean. In terms of the definition of terrorism, it says that the Minister can define a terrorism or a terrorist, which I just wonder what definitions we're using. Are they international definitions? Are they simply something that comes from the UK and we abide by it? Or will Jersey be able to define its own terrorist organisations? And that's not a value-laden statement, it's a genuine question, sir, and I just wonder if we could address that. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles? And I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. I understand in my absence, I'm sure it wasn't because of my absence, but I was absent from the Assembly yesterday, that there were, during the course of some debate, some disappointingly disparaging remarks about the scrutiny function. I haven't heard them, I've only had them relayed to me, but I know that the chair of the panel that scrutinises me and my department alluded to them in his speech in the earlier proposition. So I am disappointed to hear that, because I hold the panel that has scrutinised me in the highest regard. It is currently chaired by a lawyer, and I hope you will forgive me for saying this, sir. He brings great technical and legal expertise to that panel, but of course he is joined by other members who bring a great deal of common sense. And we have just heard from one of his panel members about that common sense that he brings to scrutinising what can be a very technical pieces of legislation. But so that being a critical friend, whilst might be uncomfortable for those of us who are ministers, is absolutely critically important for the good functioning of the democratic institutions of this island. And I, for one, sir, have never been in any doubt whatsoever that I could attend upon that panel and share the most confidential of information in a private setting and provide confidential documents to them, and that it would never occur to them to do anything other than to treat them confidentially and with the respect that being a member of this Assembly should bring to our functioning. As I say, it's not always been comfortable. There have been questions that we have had to go away and provide answers to. But I am extremely grateful to them for doing that function, I believe, as it was initially intended when we created or when this new system of government was created, and as I say, is absolutely fundamental to the good governance of this island. And as uncomfortable as it is not personal. It is about the issues that ministers and legislation that ministers are bringing forward. And I say it's not personal, sir, because the former chairman of that panel, who acted in the same manner as the current chairman, didn't disappoint me, sir, with the question that he raised. It's not a personal issue. It is an issue that he feels passionately about. And so I can give him comfort this morning that despite perhaps initially during this process a desire to remove that ability to be able to implement EU sanctions, it remains within the law, and there is no amendment before the Assembly today to take that power away. For all sorts of reasons, he and I disagree about whether we should or should not be implementing those sanctions or not, and I was questioned on that earlier in this sitting, sir, and I stand by those answers. Sir, Deputy Ward asked about the meaning of terrorism and what we do and will do in extending that definition or inserting a new definition. It's really around what we might think of as involved persons. So for some, the actor, as it were, at the scene of the crime, as it were, is quite clear that they are terrorists. What's more difficult and needs the new definition is really around involved persons. So giving greater latitude to be able to capture involved persons in that definition. And we follow the international standard definition. We're not sat in Broad Street sharpening our pencils and exploring the English language. It is an international definition, and if it weren't an international definition, then I think that we would, in actual fact, fail in those regards when the international reviewers come to make sure that we are complying with the international standards. Deputy Southern, Sir, likes to look at things through, from my perspective, the other end of the telescope. And rather than welcoming these amendments to the latest developments in international standards, wants to ask us what people have been getting away with whilst we were doing the consultation and the review and the law drafting. So he and I have argued in this assembly previously when we were bringing forward these amendments. I certainly don't accept the premise of his question, because the majority of this piece of legislation, yes, the previous piece of legislation around failure to prevent was a brand new offence in Jersey, but what that does allows a strengthening as a deterrent for those in the financial services industry to think very carefully about the processes that they've got in place to prevent Jersey and their institution being used for the purposes of financing terrorism and anti-money laundering. So it's strengthening either existing provision. This piece of legislation is strengthening and making it clearer. If there were any doubt, I don't believe there were any doubt. I don't believe that the current legislation allows those within financial services to get away with anything. But this and these amendments make it clear, and make it clear that we have in our legislation compliance with the latest international standards. So, and I commend these regulatory amendments to the Assembly this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Minister, call for the appeal. That is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. And I ask the referee to open the voting, and members participating remotely to vote in the usual way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the brevier to close the voting. The principle has been adopted. 42 votes pour, 1 vote contre, no exception, no abstentions.
Deputy Southern voted contre.
Very well. May I take it, Deputy St Mary, that your panel is not calling it in the like of what you said? Very well. So we come to second reading. You've lodged an amendment to your own articles in second reading. Do you wish the Assembly to take those in second reading as amended by your own amendment?
If I may, sir, thank you, yes.
Members will have the opportunity of seeing the nature of the amendment, and therefore I'm assuming if nobody objects, then we will take the articles in second reading as amendment. Very well. How do you wish to deal with them as amended in second reading?
So I'll take them en bloc if I may and speak to the amendment. What that amendment does is allow for designations under an asset freeze by description rather than just simply having to name an individual, which is currently the way that asset freezes work. I hope members will see, sir, that what that does is, for example, able to capture a director, which is a description of a function, for example, rather than having to be in a position to name all of the directors, as currently would be the case if you wish to designate directors of a firm, for example. But if I'll maintain them en bloc, if I may.
Are they seconded for second reading? Yes. Does any member wish to speak in second reading? Deputy Ward.
Yes, thank you, sir. I welcome these actions to capture the proceeds, if you like, of terrorist activity and so on, and recognise those designated terrorist organisations and terrorist groups and peoples. But what I want to know about is consistency. So, for example, it's 1E part, and I'm going to have to scroll down, which is what I didn't want to do, because then I lose my place. In Article 18, 1E, which talks about a link to paragraph 1CH, and again we have this interlinked piece of regulation which takes time to go through, and I compliment the scrutiny panel on taking them on that process. But it talks about, as part B, coercive action means abduction, enslavement, forced marriage, rape or sexual violence. And so what I would like to ask is this going to be consistent with jurisdictions where forced marriage, sexual violence, misogyny is rife? And we seem to do business and take account and have investment from areas where that can be said to be happening. And in particular, one person's opportunity for employment is another person's enslavement when, for example, you have no rights to your passport whilst you're there, and you are effectively working as a modern-day slave in some jurisdictions around the world. And so therefore, I would welcome if Jersey's government had the clarity of thought and the cleanliness of its actions to say to these jurisdictions, actually, we're going to treat you in the same way as we would organisations that use that to fund terrorism. Because one could say that state terrorism and the action of individuals could be viewed in the same way. So I just want to know whether that part of the regulation would extend to those types of actions by nations. Because at the moment we can all be very clear and say that the actions of leaders in Russia, we're all very clear about how wrong they are. And we're very clear about certain terrorist organisations that are very clear that we can define. But there is a grey area here, which isn't a grey area in my opinion, of the action on the individuals and the residents within certain nations where those things mentioned in these regulations, coercive actions, abduction, and there are situations that report in the media of abduction of particular members of families, for example, enslavement. One could interpret the building of certain buildings around the world for international events as virtual enslavement of the workers. Forced marriage certainly is something that happens in some nations. And rape and sexual violence has been a tool for nations to subject women for many, many, many years and still happens around the world. And so I welcome this, but we need to be consistent. And I'd like the Minister to give some assurances that we will be consistent in our approaches to all parts of the world, regardless of whether they become financially beneficial for us as an island. Thank you.
Very much indeed. Deputy of Trinity, if you'd like to speak from sitting, you can.
Thank you, sir. Can I just, it's a clarification point more than anything else. It mentions asset freeze. Are we, with regards to asset freeze, does the person or persons have to be named? If they're not named as being part of something that is not right, can we still asset freeze the, it's difficult without giving an example, sir, but I'm just concerned that the asset freeze would be on anything dealing with anything that could be deemed to be part of Russia, or is it just specifically to the individual people? If you could just clarify that, because there is an incident within the island which just needs clarification, and to clarify it in the Assembly would be much appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Well, Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. And my eyes are drawn to a screen which is entitled Jersey and UAE sign a treaty. And I'm wondering whether below a picture of our good minister, who seemed to be looking particularly astute that day, I wondered whether that included coercive action, the sorts of coercive action, which means abduction, enslavement, forced marriage, rape or sexual violence, included in this treaty with the UAE.
Does any other member wish to speak in second reading? Deputy Tadier.
I think to just extend that point, so there is there's clearly a serious issue here, and the previous vote showed that there's almost unanimous agreement on the issue that we should have the ability to take action on terrorist organisations, and clearly one of those individuals in the world at the moment and in Europe, or on the border of Europe, is Putin. And we know that Putin isn't just somebody who exercises a particularly harsh form of population control because there's a housing crisis in Russia, but that he's actually a much more serious menace to the international community, including their neighbours or their close neighbours to Ukraine in Poland, whom we've had their ambassador currently visiting for today in Jersey, and I'm sure he's most welcome. And those international relations and strengthening of them are really important. But I think it does raise a fundamental question here, because we have an international relations minister, we have an international development minister, and the names sometimes change. They no doubt work in slightly different areas but closely together. And Jersey does like to, and I think this is right, to try and increase its international personality and to exercise as much autonomy and decision-making for itself as it can, whenever it can. But in certain other areas, so we automatically pass these bits of legislation, which again is part of the realpolitik, and I have no criticism of that, yet it doesn't give us the discretion that we would seek and like to exercise in other areas. So the point is, quite rightly, someone like Putin and all of the oligarchs that it has to be said that we've been welcoming to Jersey in the past. I mean, there was active recruitment for stupidly rich individuals who are not just wealthy in their own right, but can actually change the course of economies if they want to. They can buy up football clubs. You know, that's what the people we're talking about. And we've rolled out the red carpet for them in the past, not thinking about whether or not the chickens might come home to roost at some point. Because is it only now that Putin's become slightly deranged? Did we think that in the past he was a stable person with whom to do business? Clearly not, because as a former deputy in the Assembly, I think it was Deputy Trevor Pittman, somebody I miss greatly in this Assembly for his frank speaking. I think he made the comment that money has no smell. But of course, we know since that things have moved on. So one does have to question about definitions. Shouldn't Jersey really be taking a look at who it does business with? Clearly, we don't want to be doing business with Russia at this point, and we never should have been doing business with it. But I look at a headline here, it was in the New York Times, and it says, Dubai ruler imprisoned his daughters and threatened one of his wives, the UK court rules. So these aren't just allegations. A UK court has ruled that this is the case. These are facts. Yet only 1 year later, we see a headline in the Jersey Evening Post with a big photograph of Senator Gorst there. The usual photo, it's a good photo. I wish they used such a modern one of me with my new Ian Gorst glasses. But I've still got my little wiry frames for Louis Theroux, which are now passé, unfortunately.
Deputy, I'm not entirely sure that your choice in glasses is particularly germane to the debate. If you could perhaps focus it a little bit more.
Well, on the contrary to that, I find it fascinating.
But it may be fascinating, but it's not germane. Please do carry on.
I didn't say it was Jermaine, so I said it was Louis Theroux. But I don't know who this Jermaine character is.
No foreigners
But
here.
that notwithstanding, I accept the invitation to come back to more salient matters. And the point is here, there's only a year between the two facts, and we have Jersey signing a treaty with the UAE. It's a business treaty. It's again saying, okay, let's get some UAE money in. We know that there are things that are not just dubious, but that are demonstrably proven and have been to court in the UK with what some of these people do. And these aren't just, questionable things which are hearsay. It's there in black and white. Dubai ruler imprisoned his daughters and threatened one of his wives. And we've all seen the video that one of the daughters sent, and it went around virally on social media. And I'm just asking the question, and I hope I don't get shot down for it. What happens if in 5 years' time you get something that, what if the UAE decides that they want to proliferate in their region, if they want to invade a country, and then there are international sanctions? Is it only then, when we wait for the letter to come down from Whitehall, and they say, by the way, these people are now on the terrorist organisation, we'll say, okay, let's rubber stamp that. We had our suspicions before, but now, because you tell us that we have to do it, we will do it. Even though clearly in our law, we can define who the terrorists are. And even though this particular individual is sailing very close, I would say, to the definition of what a terrorist is, certainly he fulfills the traditional English definition of somebody who's not a particularly nice bloke. And it's not somebody or particularly a jurisdiction that I am comfortable doing business with. And I don't need to have a letter from Whitehall to tell me in the future that we shouldn't be doing business with some of these people just to absolve our consciences.
Senator Farnham, did you wish to speak?
No, sir, sorry.
Sorry, I thought you indicated which. Deputy Pershard.
Thank you, sir. I have a question for the Attorney General, please, sir. The question is, in the context where a treaty has been signed between two nations, what is the impact on that treaty of the introduction of sanctions? Is there a relationship, and if there was a conflict of content or even intent, or the spirit of a treaty was somehow compromised by the introduction of a sanction, would there be which one takes precedence?
Do you wish to? I mean, it's a question about the contractual effect of a treaty as against the exorbitant jurisdiction of the sanction.
So obviously, in terms of international law, the UK is responsible for our international relations, so we would need to we would need to get authority to enter into the treaty, and then it would need to be ratified and extended to us on our behalf. If there were to be obviously it's quite a hypothetical question that the Deputy is asking, but if there, in general terms, if there were to be a conflict between the terms of the treaty and the terms of sanctions, my instinctive answer is that the sanctions would take precedence. I would think that there would be provisions within the terms of the treaty to deal with these sorts of situations and how for example, how disputes between the parties to the treaty could be dealt with. Normally there is a series of provisions whereby the parties endeavour to negotiate differences by negotiation, and then it goes from there up to international arbitration. So there should be mechanisms to deal with such a situation in the treaty, but in general terms, my view is that the sanctions should prevail.
Does any other member wish to speak in second reading? No other member wishes to speak in second reading? I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. I'll try and steer us back to the second reading of these amendments, if I may. So you've been very generous with the Assembly's time this morning. Perhaps I could just say, however, sir, that I am certainly now looking forward to, in a way I never envisaged, seeing Reform Jersey's election manifesto and lots of photographs of the Ian Gorse glasses and my sartorial style on their leaflets, bearing in mind the comments that they've just made there. So I think we're going to enjoy this election, let's just say that. So there were some serious questions that were made. If I could start with Deputy Ward, who asked about the reach of this legislation. And I think he knows that he knows the answer before he asked it, but he just wishes me to confirm it. There is no extraterritorial reach in this legislation. It can only apply to individuals or companies registered or based in Jersey, as would be our normal legislative process. The Deputy of Trinity asked about designated persons, and it is correct that sanctions law envisage designated persons or companies being designated, and they are the ones, the individuals designated or the companies designated to which the freeze takes place. I know there's a lot of, or there has been commentary locally about family members, about connections, and of course what my officials and those across the agencies are doing in the task force is making sure that the designated persons don't receive any benefit directly or indirectly from connections. So on the surface it's straightforward, but we know that individuals with such magnitude of wealth are able to structure their affairs in various manners, and it is important that we ensure that there is no circumnavigation of the sanctions regime, perhaps in the way that the Deputy was indicating in his question. So I'm not sure that this was really the point to debate Jersey's external or common external relations policy. I think that will come when there is a new government and a new assembly sitting in this place, and therefore I won't rise to the challenge that my colleagues to my left have set for me this morning. Rather, sir, I will maintain these amendments in second reading. Thank you.
Do you call for the appellant in circumstances? Appellant is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting and members participating remotely to vote in the usual way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. The articles have been adopted in second reading, 40 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions. Do you move the matter in third reading, Minister?
If I may, sir, thank you.
Is it seconded for third reading? Does any member wish to speak in third reading? Deputy Morell?
Thank you, sir. And it's just a question of technicality, really. With regard to the situation in Russia, it's understood that large amounts of money have been moved from, let's say, European nations where financial services are well known to other nations that offer financial services but aren't in Europe or the USA. Is the Minister satisfied that when that movement of assets takes place and that Jersey is in a position, or our financial services sector is in a position to ensure that we don't inadvertently end up linked structures in some way in those third countries? So I'm talking about money moving from Europe to other countries in the world.
Deputy, I must interrupt you. I mean, is this about whether this law should be adopted in third reading? Because if it's not about that, that's the limit on the debate.
Okay, in which case, sir, I thought it was, sir, but maybe it isn't.
Well, no, if it is, if you could tie it to whether this law should be adopted
it's
in
whether
third reading.
these amendments will indeed help help us trace those, or whether we can, in fact, uphold these sanctions, given the difficulty taken in tracing assets when they're moved around the world like this. Does this law help us with that?
Much. Does any other member wish to speak in third reading? No other member wishes to speak in third reading. I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir, and I don't want to sidetrack, but the Assistant Minister points to a very important issue with regard to the economic war against Putin's regime. And there is not a straightforward answer. It would be wrong of me to suggest that these issues are straightforward. What is important and is happening is that Jersey service providers, where they have a nexus to a designated person, that they put in place the freezes under the sanctions regulation. What the agencies, through the created task force, is doing doing further work along the lines that the Deputy is alluding to, and also working with partners globally. But, of course, a war is a war, whether it's a military war or an economic war, and we need to make sure that the sanctions are in place appropriately, and that we are ensuring also that there is no circumventing of those sanctions, which is the area that I think the Deputy is alluding to. So there is some strengthening around circumventing provisions, or clarity in that regard. But that really is the work that my officials and others right across all of the arms of government are undertaking on a daily basis, and it's what their full-time job is, and it's what we have provided additional resource for them to do. So I maintain these amendments in third reading and call for the appel.
The appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seats and ask the greffier to open the voting. If members have had the opportunity of casting their vote, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The law has been adopted in third reading, 37 votes for, no votes contra, no abstentions. The next item is the draft limited partnership amendment number 2, Jersey Law P54, lodged by the same minister, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Limited Partnerships Amendment Number 2, Jersey Law 2000, a law to amend the Limited Partnerships Jersey Law 1994. The states, subject to the sanction of Her Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
So could I ask my Assistant Minister to act as rapporteur for this item? Thank you.
Deputy Simon.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the draft Limited Partnerships Amendment number 2, Jersey Law, is a priority piece of financial services legislation. The amendment law fulfills 2 key policy objectives. One, to ensure it is fit for purpose for our fund sector and continues to provide an attractive and competitive legal framework within which our international funds business can operate. And 2, to enhance the supervisory and enforcement powers of the registrar to meet the necessary improvements required from next Moneyval assessment. Sir, the amendment law will play an important role in ensuring Jersey remains competitive with other financial service centres which specialise in fund businesses. So the Jersey Limited Partnership is the preferred legal structure for fund managers and promoters to use for international funds managed out of Jersey. Our fund sector is a core pillar of our financial services industry and a key growth area with over 460 billion of global assets under management. Jersey is recognised internationally as a jurisdiction of choice for alternative fund businesses, primarily private equity. So the amendment law captures those changes identified by industry which are needed to ensure that Jersey maintains its competitive position. Certain changes reflect recent enhancement made to our competitors' limited partnership legal frameworks. Others resolve ambiguities which have been identified in our law over time. So a key ambiguity industry identified was around the process for terminating a limited partnership. The current process allows for dissolution to take effect first before the limited partnership is wound up. This has left the limited liability status of the underlying investors of the fund as limited partners unclear. This new amendment law, if passed, clarifies this. It does this by setting out a new statutory process for the termination of a limited partnership. This process overrides any provision in the limited partnership agreement or the customary law of ordinary partnership. So under the amendment law, a limited partnership is now must first be wound up and its assets distributed and its creditors paid off before it is terminated. Only the registrar can do this by cancelling its registration. This is done upon receipt of a request made on behalf of the limited partnership or on behalf of the exercise of the registrar's new powers to cancel the registration of the limited partnership if the general partner is in continued default of its statutory obligations. So where the limited partnership is struck off, the continued default of the general partner, the amendment law protects limited partner's liability and the general partner's powers are restricted so that it can only be acted to wind up the limited partnership or have it reinstated. So by introducing this new statutory termination process, due consideration has been taken as to the potential harm which could be suffered in cases where a general partner has refused to act unreasonably or where the limited partnership has mistakenly been dissolved without realisation of all its assets. The amendment law introduces a reinstatement process which gives the court full discretion to deal with its reinstatement as it sees fit. Furthermore, this new statutory dissolution process reflects the position already adopted by other jurisdictions. So the effect of this new termination process, together with the introduction of an annual confirmation obligation, ensures that the register will be kept up to date and accurate. This was an issue which has been identified by the registry team following a review of Jersey's limited partnership regime. It was found that a significant number of limited partnerships were on the register were in default of their statutory obligations and believed to be inactive or fully wound up, where their registration had not been cancelled. Under the current law, the registrar has inadequate powers to remove them from the register, would enforce the statutory penalties contained in the law. So this amendment law, if passed, addresses these issues. More importantly of all, it will allow the registrar to demonstrate that it has exercised and implemented those new enhanced supervisory and enforcement powers by removing those limited partnerships which have been in default for years by removing them from the registrar. This will be critical in Jersey's upcoming money ballot assessment. So it will also benefit those investors whose monies have been tied up where there is a general partner refusing to act, as they will now be able to take action through the statutory process and enable their locked funds to be released. So the overall effect of the amendment law will be that it ensures that investors are not disadvantaged in any way by their funds being invested in a Jersey Limited Partnership, and the industry will be better held to account for their management of these structures. This will protect and enhance our funds industry. So we have consulted extensively in the preparation of this amendment law. The industry has been engaged throughout the policy development through a Jersey Finance-led working group. This group included representatives from the Registry, Law Officers Department, the regulator and government. We also wrote to every single registered Jersey Limited Partnership to ensure that all relevant persons affected by the changes were aware of them and its public consultation. A public consultation was a virtual town hall event was held and attended by industry to go through the changes in the Amendment Law 2. All concerns raised during this process have been addressed. So the Amendment Law will allow Jersey to modernise its limited partnership framework for funds, businesses, align it to our competitors' jurisdiction law, and help with Jersey's ability to demonstrate its compliance with international standards and the requirements of Moneyval. So I propose the principles.
Right, are the principles seconded?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Does any member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy of St Mary.
Thank you, sir. May I take the opportunity to thank the Minister and the Assistant Minister for their kind comments addressed to myself and the panel as a whole in the previous debate. May I also thank Senator Pallett for his kind intervention, and by way of response, can I say that the panel has undoubtedly benefited from the perhaps unusual situation of having two members on it with ministerial experience. I thank you for that. As to this matter, sir, I did previously say that the panel has had briefings on a number of matters throughout its term, not all of which resulted in comments paper. This is one such. We did have a briefing. We prepared our own internal memorandum on it, taking particular note of the consultation process, and we're happy to endorse the proposition. So I do urge members to support it. Thanks, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy Southern.
Yes, I just raised the question of where in the bankruptcy process, where these companies come and where indeed their workers come, and is there any need for further protection of workers in circumstances whereby they would normally receiving redundancy payments or the like.
Any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles? Then I close the debate and call upon the Assistant Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. If I can address the Deputy of St Mary's helpful comments first, I thank him for his panel's engagement on this subject, which was helpfully pulling this together. And if I come to Deputy Southern, I'm a bit confused by his question. These structures are fund structures that have multiple investors, and I'm unclear as to how this could affect individual workers' rights, because the companies are run by firms in the financial services industry in Jersey, and they're protected by Jersey employment legislation. So unless he's able to clarify his point in second reading, that's about as far as I'm able to answer it at the moment. And with that, sir, I ask for the appel.
That is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. I ask the referee to open the voting and members remotely to participate in the usual way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. And I ask the referee to close the voting. The principles have been adopted, 32 votes for, no votes contra, no abstentions. I take it your panel doesn't wish to call the matter in?
You're right, sir, we do not, thank you.
How do you wish to deal with the matter in second reading?
I'll get to the right button in a minute. So I would like to take the articles en bloc, please, sir.
Is it seconded for second reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in second reading? No one wishes to speak in second reading. I close the debate, and I'll take this on a standing vote. Members in favour, kindly show. Those against? It is adopted in second reading. Do you take the matter in third reading, Mr. Minister?
Yes, I'd like to take the matter in third reading. I'd like to just make a couple of quick comments, of a more personal nature perhaps, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong in making these comments, but this is my last appearance in this Assembly with a piece of legislation, and I should just like to thank members for their understanding and consideration in presenting this to them. And with that, sir, I ask for the appel.
Is it seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in third reading? And of course.
Yes, sir. My assistant minister's rather taken my thunder, as it were, but I did just at this opportunity want to record publicly my personal thanks to him for the work that he has done in external relations and financial services throughout this term of office. As he said, this will be his last item presented, and I'm extremely grateful. I hope he's proud of his service in my department, and I will sorely miss him, sir, whether I'm in this assembly or I'm just loitering around Latac, and I believe that he'll be missed in St. One as well, sir. So I'd like to record my thanks.
Does any other member wish to speak in third reading? Then I call upon the Assistant Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir, and I'm slightly pink with embarrassment, but I should, whilst this has nothing to do with third reading, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, I should also like to express my great pleasure at working with the External Relations Department. They're a very professional and brilliant team, and the Minister is incredibly helpful and supportive, and it's been a real pleasure to work with them and present the legislation that I presented, which I think has made a real difference in places to our financial services industry. So I ask for the appel.
The appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. And I ask the greffier to open the voting and members participating remotely to vote in the usual way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The law has been adopted in third reading. 34 votes for, no votes contra, no abstentions. The next item is the draft non-profit organisations miscellaneous amendments Jersey law, and lodged by the same minister, P56, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Non-Profit Organisations Miscellaneous Amendments Jersey Law 2000, a law to amend the Non-Profit Organisations Jersey Law 2008, the Proceeds of Crime Supervisory Bodies Jersey Law 2008, and certain other enactments in relation to non-profit organisations. The States, subject to the sanction of Her Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As the greffier has just read, sir, these draft amendments are concerned with non-profit organisations, or NPOs as we refer to them, a sector which include those organisations who operate within Jersey and who raise or distribute funds for the benefit of others and include registered charities. Globally, it is recognised that terrorists and terrorist organisations may exploit the NPO sector to raise and move funds or otherwise support terrorist organisations and operations. Protecting the MPO sector from terrorist abuse is both a critical component of the global fight against terrorism and a necessary step to preserve the integrity of the MPO sector and donor community. Unfortunately, sir, recent events in Ukraine have seen a surge in scams where criminals masquerade as legitimate charities. Ensuring that all MPOs are registered will assist in shifting the genuine from the criminal and help to prevent criminals from taking advantage of an unfolding tragedy. The proposal is that over the next few months there will be consultations with the MPO sector about the changes to minimise impact. Nothing will change until September, but given that we are about to enter the election period, it is prudent to start the legislative process now. It's worth noting as well, sir, the FATF recommendations are aimed solely at criminal or terrorist activity and should have minimal impact on legitimate MPOs going about their activities in good faith. While most of the changes are relatively minor, for example, amending the definition of non-profit organisation to include legal person and arrangements, or as to better align with the FATF standard, some of the other changes are as follows, sir. The JFSC will be designated with the full range of powers and mandate of an MPO supervisor under the Proceeds of Crime Supervisory Bodies Jersey Law 2008. The £1,000 per annum threshold for registration will be removed so as to capture all MPOs, including those just starting up. A new power whereby the Minister for External Relations and Financial Services can impose obligations on vulnerable NPOs by order. A public consultation will be conducted again later in 22 to determine what the appropriate obligation may be, as well as what will qualify as a vulnerable NPO will be introduced, and the JFSC will be permitted to supply information which is not available to the public and has come into the JFSC's possession when carrying out its obligations under the MPO law to the Charities Commissioner, the Jersey Gambling Commission, as well as other competent authorities, both domestic and international. The JFSC will only be able to supply information to these bodies mentioned if the JFSC is satisfied that the information will be used by the body solely in the exercise of its functions that are similar to the functions of the Commission that the Commission may exercise under this law. So once again, I'm grateful for the work that Scrutiny has undertaken in regard to these amendments. These amendments are important. They will affect the MPO and the charitable sector, but hopefully, as I've indicated and as members will have seen in the questions and answer paper and the risk analysis work, we will do that, or the department and the incoming minister will do that in partnership with the NPO sector, because this is about protecting them from the possibility that those who wish to subvert their good intentions and their raising of funds are not able to do so, sir. And I commend the principles to the Assembly.
Thank you very much, Minister. The principle seconded. Does any member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy St Mary.
Thank you, sir. And very briefly, this is yet a further matter where we received a presentation, as a result of which we did issue a comments paper, and as the Minister just said, helpfully the Department issued a question and answer paper only yesterday, which hopefully is of benefit to members. So just to summarise what we said in the comments paper, we very much support this and we hope members will do so as well. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? Mr. Pallas.
Just very briefly, sir, about two particular issues. In the proposition, it mentions towards the end that should any MPO find any difficulty in obtaining a bank account, that to contact the Minister. It's not exactly an MPO, but there are certain organisations that seem to find it very difficult to open bank accounts in Jersey, and one of them seems to be political parties. For the democratic process in Jersey, it's important that any new parties can open bank accounts. So I would urge the Minister to maybe meet with me at some point and see if we can't come to some solution to that. We have a UK bank account and it functions very well, but that shouldn't need to happen. The other one around thrift clubs, and we've got a very strong community social engagement in thrift clubs within a lot of pubs in Jersey and various other organisations. And it's important that that carries on. So I'm really keen to ensure that any new regulation or red tape isn't too heavy-handed, and that many people put in money into thrift clubs throughout the year so that they can and cope and deal with some of the stresses and strains, financial strains around Christmas time. Just want to know what the Minister's thoughts are around ensuring that those can carry on.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy of Trinity, please proceed.
Thank you, sir. It gives me an opportunity to follow the previous speaker. A lot of the sports clubs and charity clubs get caught with regards to changing of the treasurer, and I would just like that to be brought in. What I don't want to lose, the vast majority of these organisations are done by people, let's say, are retired, getting into their late ages. And there's quite a lot of paperwork to get involved with. As long as we make it easy, and as long as that everybody understands where they're coming from, I just wanted to make it clear that it's not only, as I say, sporting bodies, it's also charities as well. And there's a lot of small sporting bodies and charities. So all I say is, if we could just follow on from what the previous senator said, that we try to make it as easy as possible so that everybody knows where they're coming from. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Very much in the same vein. I appreciate this. We're passing a law, and it will only be when the order comes in that the law takes effect, practical effect anyway. But I note that the Minister is stating that stakeholder consultation will take place between now and September, when the order is expected to be signed. I'm particularly interested in understanding what stakeholder consultation has taken place up till now, because I know the Minister is very aware that whether it's local businesses, which I know aren't covered by this, or charities or thrift clubs, there is often a concern in Jersey that those organisations which operate purely locally are burdened by regulations which are designed to protect our international reputation, quite rightly. And so I'm just interested in understanding how the Minister has engaged with stakeholders to date to ensure that this law, even now, before it is brought into force by order, does not affect local organisations. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy. Is there any other member who wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles? I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. I saw some nodding of the heads when Senator Pallett was asking about bank accounts for political parties, so perhaps he needs to speak to the bankers of Reform Jersey. They might be able to help. But it was a serious point, and I appreciate that small organisations, that charities are struggling now to open bank accounts because of all of the compliance issues, which was not the case a decade ago. It's gradually got more difficult. I think we all understand the reasons that it has got more difficult. In fact, we market ourselves on it being difficult to open bank accounts in Jersey for the very reason that we are meeting the highest international standards of compliance. But I am more than happy to meet with the Senator and with any other party who is struggling likewise. So there are currently 900 MPOs registered with the JFSC. 83% of those have no activity outside of the island, and therefore it is expected that there will not be it will not be necessary for the JFSC to require any more detailed information from them. There has already been stakeholder engagement. We in the department, and I suppose the ministerial team in particular, thought long and hard about where this responsibility for supervising AML and CFT of the MPO sector should sit. And on balance, and having consulted with both the regulator and the charity commissioner, for all of the reasons hopefully that members will understand, it was decided that the expertise required from a supervisory perspective of these matters actually sits already with the regulator, and if we were to give these powers to the Charities Commissioner, then we would be replicating the powers which were already, the expertise which were already engaged and employed in the regulator. So being involved in the charity sector in a personal capacity, I do understand the concern of particularly smaller MPOs about the burden that our compliance with international standards might be bringing upon them. Of course, looking at the other side of the argument, this is about protecting more vulnerable MPOs from being used and abused by criminals. And I think that it is the right thing for us to do to make these legislative changes and to continue with that stakeholder engagement and consultation before the order is signed in due course. And I, of course, can't speak for any potential future minister, but I would expect them to take these matters very seriously indeed, and to wish to be fully appraised of the feedback from the NPO sector, and to fully understand the implications and, just as importantly, the support available to the NPO sector before giving effect to the order in due course. I maintain the principles and call for the appel, sir. Thank you.
That is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. Ask the greffier to open the voting, and members participating remotely to vote in the chat. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The principles have been adopted. 38 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions. I take it as usual, Deputy Samari, your panel doesn't wish to call the matter.
You're correct, sir. No, we do not. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. How do you wish to deal with the matter in second reading then?
If I could take the articles on block, so I've alluded to their content in the principals opening speech, and I'll endeavour to ask any questions as may be. Thank you.
Are the articles seconded for second reading? Yes. Does any member wish to speak in second reading? If no member wishes to speak in second reading, then I close the debate. Do you call for the appel, or do you... I'm prepared to take this in light of the previous vote on a standing vote. Those in favour, kindly show. Those against? Very well, it's passed in second reading. Do you move in third reading?
If I may, sir, thank you.
Is it seconded for third reading? Does any member wish to speak in third reading? No member wishes to speak in third reading. I close the debate and again ask members in favour to show. Those against? The law has been adopted in third reading. We now come to the Half-Depart Lido P61 lodged by the Conotab of St Helier, and I ask the greffier to read the citation. There's one amendment lodged by the Minister for Infrastructure. Conotab, are you accepting the amendment? I think you indicated you were.
Yes, I am, sir.
Are members content that we take the proposition, therefore, as amended by the amendment from the Minister for Infrastructure? Very well, I ask the greffier to read the proposition as amended.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion A, to ensure that the Property Holdings Department, in consultation with the steering group established in paragraph B, upholds its full obligations as landlord of the Lido at Havre-des-Pas with immediate effect, including to make reasonable endeavours to maintain the facility as watertight in respect of rainwater penetration through the roof, barring extremes of weather, and ensuring that the public toilets at the pool are available all year round. B, to establish a steering group to maximise the benefit of the Lido to the community and to resolve any issues arising in future, with the steering group to meet quarterly and its membership to include political representation from the parish of St Helier. And C, to initiate negotiations with the current operator of the Lido facility for a new 9-year lease with standard break clauses.
Conotab.
Thank you. And because this proposition has been accepted, I think there's an opportunity for the Assembly to simply to approve it and allow matters to proceed. Clearly, if members want to spend half a day discussing the Lido and their relationship with it, that is a matter for them. But I am conscious that we have a busy agenda left to deal with. I will, in any case, attempt to answer any questions raised by members. I do have one question for myself, which I would like the Minister to answer when he speaks, as I expect he will. I had a useful meeting with the Minister at the beginning of this week at the Lido, and we're very much of the same view that this is an amazing facility that Jersey and St Helier are very lucky to have, and it's being used increasingly both as a flagship venue for events, and we need, our tourism industry needs places like this for events to be held. Members who may admit to watching the Desperate Housewives of Jersey will have seen the venue featured in that programme, and it has been receiving many bookings for events involving incoming tourists as well as local people wishing to have anniversaries, parties, weddings and the like on the venue. So it's a very important venue in the hands of the current operator, and it's being used very well. I should also stress that the current tenant has really done a great deal to involve the community in the future of this building, so much so that the monthly meetings of the Havre-des-Pas Improvement Group, which used to take place at the Oamaru Hotel and which had to stop due to COVID, have now been relocated to the Lido, and we meet there every month for a discussion about how we can improve Havre-des-Pas as a district for residents, but also for visitors and islanders in general. And the tenant has been happy to host those meetings, and it's a very appropriate venue in which they take place. I don't propose to go into the background of the breakdown of relationship between the tenant and the landlord. I think this is, if one will excuse the pun, water under the bridge. I think we need to move forward, and I'm very pleased that the Minister agrees with me that forming a steering group with the key players after the election will be a way forward, and that any future issues that arise can be resolved around a table. and that we will see the venue go from strength to strength. I'm mindful that the venue is well used by local swimmers all year round. As members will know, there's an increasing trend of people to throw themselves in the sea in January, first thing in the morning. And it's important that despite the storm protection measures that have to be taken to protect the Lido during the winter months, it's important that the public toilet facilities operated by the states are kept going as far as possible all year round, and that's why that is in the proposition, together with a commitment that all reasonable steps will be taken by the landlord to keep the building watertight, because the tenant has in the past seen lots of money invested in the building, in the interior of the building, wasted when water has come in through the roof. But I believe that matters are well advanced by Property Holdings to make sure that the building is going to be fit for purpose. And I know that there's been considerable investment in the safety railings around the structure, which of course are very important to ensure public safety. The other aspect, I think, of this is the importance of a sustainable budget, but clearly that cannot be agreed by this Assembly, but certainly it's something that I hope the next government plan will make provision for, because we don't want the Lido at Havre de Pas to suffer the same fate as some other venues, such as the Opera House, where insufficient funding for maintenance is laid out. And I would hope that that this important venue for the island has a bright future in the hands of the government, working in association with the parish and indeed with the community. I make the amendment, the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Is the proposition second?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. So I will begin by thanking the Constable for accepting my amendment to his proposition and for joining me at Havre de Pas bathing pool on Monday morning for a site visit. Whilst we were inspecting the roof of the Lido, there were several brave souls took the morning dip in the pool, reminding us that this is indeed an all year round venue. The Constable and I declined to join them. The public conveniences, sir, are currently operated on a seasonal basis. This is in keeping with the rest of the facility to protect from storm damage and, sadly, vandalism. I appreciate the sea swimming community would benefit from access to the public conveniences during the winter months, so working with my officers, I will commit to finding a solution for our sea swimming community to have access to the public conveniences over the winter months before the next winter season begins. So turning now to the maintenance of the facility, a small team of contractors, as the Constable has just mentioned, were on site and Monday morning and have been there for some time working on the bathing pool. This team are there to ensure that the wider fabric of the structure, the boardwalk, the sluices, the steps and the toilets are maintained for public safety and enjoyment. So the team have been performing a deep clean of the exterior areas, and in my opinion the facility appears well maintained. While some will accuse my department of neglecting this facility, I am more than satisfied that we are maintaining this facility to the best of our ability using the budget allocated within the current government plan. Sir, I will say no more about the maintenance. I will, however, just remind members that this is a Victorian structure with several extensions and additions dating back to the first half of the last century. The facility is enveloped by the sea twice daily and battered by severe storms throughout the winter. So Jersey Property Holdings are allowed to manage this facility in accordance with the mandate set for them by this Assembly, and I will support Part B of the proposition to establish a political oversight group for the After Par bathing pool. It will be for the next Minister for Infrastructure to work with the Constable and the political oversight group to look beyond the current government plan to ensure funding is secured to develop and maintain this facility for the benefit of future generations. So I will conclude by stating that I also accept Part C of the proposition. However, I will not be commenting on Part C as it relates to the commercial interest of a small business owner, and I do not believe it's appropriate to discuss this matter in the Assembly. Thank you, sir.
So may I have a clarification?
Will you give way for a point of clarification?
Sorry, it's just the Minister just referred to point B and said a political oversight group. The part B is to establish a steering group. Now, to me, they are different things, sir, and I wonder if the Minister can clarify whether they are one and the same thing or different things, since the membership would be very different, I think, regards political oversight groups in this Assembly and the next. Just for clarification, thank you, sir.
I'm content it's a steering group, sir, and I would suggest it may be possible to be part of the After Par group, which is already set up. I'm content with that. Thanks, sir.
Very much, Minister. Deputy Martin.
Thank you, sir. And I will keep it brief because of the acceptance of the Constable. I just wanted to add a few extra lines about the area and the pool. And it's a shame that it has got to this. Being that I've represented Heart of Har for a while and now the newly formed waterfront, the residents feel, and it is the heart of the Heart of Har, the jewel in the crown is the Lido, is being forgotten, just like everything else around this area where, you know, you just compare gas lighting to new LED lighting on the waterfront. I go a bit far there, sir, but we have literally just changed from gas lighting down at Heart of Har. Oh, that's what the residents feel. So I'm really sorry that they had to get to this, but having listened to many of the residents and the people that use the pool, the Constable was left nowhere else to go. Looks like we do have a solution, but I just wanted to mention this steering group will need to be set up, whoever represents down this area, and it needs to really come back with some force and some budget for the whole area and not just the Lido. I'll leave it there. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Senator Pallett.
Sir, again, I'll listening to the Constable, I will keep this brief. I think everybody wants the Heart of Har Lido to be successful, and which is why I'm going to be supporting this proposition. One of the things that I think we do need to do, and the Constable mentioned it, is commit funding. It is a heritage site, and our record, I'm afraid, with heritage sites over the last 2 decades has been abysmal, and we do need to find sufficient funding. And this is one of the sites that it shouldn't just come from the infrastructure budget. I think we need to find it elsewhere, ensure this building is looked after properly. It's a difficult building. I know with my time as Assistant Minister with responsibility for sport, I went there on numerous occasions. It's a very difficult building to keep watertight, but nevertheless, we do need to make sure that whoever operates it can operate it successfully and to his needs. I'm glad that the Deputy Ward picked up on the point about the steering group, because a political oversight group just won't hack it. It needs to involve the community. It is a community site, and I absolutely accept that it's something that should be central to that part of town, and Deputy Martin just made that point. My last point is around sport. It is a very historic pool, of which it was our main pool for many decades. Over recent years, it's moved away from sport into a more of an events-based type venue, and I think that's the right thing to do. It does need to have a wide use, so a wider use, so that it's used all year round. But there are many clubs that use the pool. Open water, you've got Polar Bears Club that use it on a regular basis all year round. Water polo use it. Jersey Swimming Club do use it occasionally. You've got the Green Island Hove Day Park Swim. It's still very much a sports-based venue where it is used on a regular basis. And I think it's important because there have been tensions in the past between users and the operator around that. The sports side of it is respected, and those clubs can operate at times of the year when they need to. Changing space is important, and it's important that as an open water swimmer myself and somebody that is getting that likes swimming less and less in the cold the older I get, nevertheless, it's good to have toilets on a site when you do go out for a swim. So I support this. It's absolutely the right thing to do, but the states and government have got to commit to looking after this building in the next political term. It can't just fall on the shoulders of the infrastructure minister.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Labby.
Thank you, sir, and I agree completely with the last speaker, Senator Pallett. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Infrastructure Minister for his helpful amendment and interventions here. And he has my sympathy because he's got so much call on his budget. And this is an expensive but very special part of the island. And it needs special allocation of, special funding and special treatment. It's another building I feel that we take for granted in some respects, or have taken for granted in the past, but it's extremely important and of its kind. It is globally in the top 10 Lidos around the world anywhere, maybe even the top 5. And whilst it was a Victorian structure to start with, the later additions, which I think might be 100 years old this year, in 1922, they have merit of their own too, because they are classic and iconic of the Art Deco period. So we all know it's absolutely stunning. I mean, the aerial shots of it are used so often to advertise Jersey. It could be a huge asset, but it is desperately in need of major TLC. And I do appreciate the difficulty with the leaking roof and that structure. But we've got to look after it. It's our duty to look after it for future generations. And let's let this generation enjoy it refurbished. And so I look forward to working on that too.
Thank you very much. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I am concerned about the costs here. I'm delighted that the Minister's amendment has been accepted by the proposer, but I would like to have a better understanding of the costs that are going to be involved, not just for maintaining, as the proposition says, the rainwater penetration through the roof, so maintaining the roof and the public toilets, but as I understand it, until the actual exterior render of the granite blocks that actually support this Lido are dealt with, then anything we're doing is throwing good money after bad, so to speak. Effectively, every year, we're going to have to be redoing this. And so the work that actually needs to be done is to change the render on the actual structure of this building. And that is a many multi-million-pound project. And this isn't being dealt with here at all. And that concerns me a great deal. I fear that we're in danger of saying, patting ourselves on the back and saying, look, we've all maintained the Lido, when actually we won't have maintained the Lido. We'll have maintained a couple of structures on top of the Lido, and the Lido itself will continue to rot underneath. So I appreciate this is one of those opportunities where I'd love the Minister to be able to respond again, but I appreciate he can't. But anything the Constable can say to enlighten the Assembly as to those costs, because the Constable's proposition says existing revenue budgets. Well, that means something's not going to be dealt with within existing revenue budgets for a start. But I am concerned that this is a very, very short-term proposition where the longer-term problems for the Lido will render this proposition ineffective within a couple of years, 2 or 3 years' time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. I don't want to repeat too much of what other members have said. Some extremely good points have been made, and particularly about the maintenance of this extremely important building, not just to the whole island, but particularly this part of St Helier. I've spent some time recently studying the Havre des Pas village improvement proposals for no particular reason. Just out of interest, I've been examining that, and there are some extremely good ideas in this that would have a massive impact in improving that area, not just for the people who live there, but for visitors, and really emphasise it as a destination within Jersey. And the Lido is, of course, a fundamental part of that. But as another member said previously, this stuff doesn't really happen by accident. You do have to have a proper plan in place to make sure you get the funding in place for it, that you look at the area as a whole and all the other improvements that need to be made. In particular, in that promenade, there's some good work that could be done there, and then on that corner by Fort d'Auvergne as well, that can really enhance the area. So as well as making sure that we have arrangements in place so that this building is protected and that it is maintained properly, and whoever the tenant is there at any given point gets a good relationship with government so that their business can thrive, and all of the events and everything that goes on there can be enjoyed by everyone. That whole area needs some special attention, and I would like to hear more in the future about where that funding will come from, how we will get that in place so that that whole area gets the regeneration that it needs. Some of the work that's gone on there recently in the road improvements have been very well received, and that's a good thing, but the rest of it can't fall off the agenda just because that one good thing has been achieved. So, of course, I support the proposition wholeheartedly.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Trinity. Did you indicate you wish to speak?
Thank you, sir. It would be wrong of me not to follow on from what has been said, and I think my Minister of Infrastructure will follow me later, but I have, with regards to the Lido, and the previous senator said that sport controlled it. I was concerned about 12 months ago when we took over the actual looking at the Lido, and it was interesting how the Lido fitted in with sport, but I've now got to that point, which is another department. But what I will say is that the whole point of the amendment is the fact to talk over everything that has been said. We not only have lifeguards to look at, we have to look at the toilets, we have to look at the funding. And I think by setting up this committee, we'll actually get things moving. I've, over the past 12 months, have been trying to get everybody together. I've been heavily involved. Everybody wishes to go down that route of a committee. Let's look at it and make sure that what has been said by everybody here today, that we keep the Lido. There is no question from what I'm seeing, and I see it appeared on, what was it, Jersey Tourism, that the Lido is important and people like to go and see it as well. So I think it's vitally important that we look for funding and we look how to run it. And I think by setting up this committee of people, I think we should be able to achieve something, because as what has been said, everybody wants to keep the Lido and wants to make sure that it stays in a very, very safe place, and to look after the tenant to make sure that he can do his events there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Just briefly, the Lido is important. I can remember watching Battle of the Bands there. It was a great little venue, actually. It was really good. I just want to make one point for the Constable. He's accepted the amendment, and it says to make reasonable endeavours to maintain, and those words sort of concern me a little, because I just wonder whether I can ask the Constable, sir, whether he can confirm that his reasonable endeavours to maintain may be the same as the Minister's and the Property Holdings' reasonable endeavours to maintain, because as Deputy Morell said quite rightly earlier, this could be short term, look really good, but in the long term really not get what we need for this important piece of infrastructure. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Tadier.
Thanks, sir. There's of course going to be a lot of speeches which say the Lido is great, isn't it, and we need to protect it, but it doesn't really focus on the point of how we got to this point and what needs to fundamentally change in the future, because the Lido of Avda Park can't be taken in isolation. It's just one of a series of examples of how we haven't got to grips over years, over decades, of maintaining our key public infrastructure, especially where there's a historical, a cultural and a social element to it. So we look at Lido, but we also look at the Opera House, we also look at Fort Regent, and I suppose it's slightly different, but we look at things like Elizabeth Castle, which does come under heritage, and these things require serious amounts of money to be put aside well in advance, so that when a bill comes up, a bit like our own houses, if you like, we don't have to scramble around and let the problem deteriorate so far that we then have to bring these kinds of proposition. And the proposition essentially, like Deputy Ward says, to ask the Minister to maybe do something about it at some point in the future. I mean, is that what it's come to? Where you've got an asset with black and white photographs, beautiful photographs, that Jersey Heritage post, where you see the divers coming down almost swan-like into the water. Unlike my father, who I remember told me he dived into that once, banged his head and probably got half knocked unconscious. And he survived to tell the tale, thankfully. There is a mismatch between the way we pay lip service, and I think we genuinely, in our hearts, respect and want to preserve our heritage, but we don't actually do it in reality, even though we're a rich island. So I'm just saying that at the next elections, after the next elections, we need to get to, the Assembly needs to put something in place. And it's the same with the Opera House, isn't it? I mean, the Opera House shouldn't have to come to property holdings. The way I look at it, property holdings are the landlord. I think they're the landlord for the Lido, and if they're not, the principle remains the same. To take the example of the Opera House, they shouldn't have to come to whoever is the Minister for Culture and say, we've got this problem, and it's not to do with decorating it and doing the fine artwork, and something that the Treasury Minister will know in her private life is about the painstaking work that needs to go into preserving beautiful artwork. It's to do with the fundamentals of the rain's getting in, how do we stop it getting in? And if it was a private tenant-landlord arrangement, you'd say, you're the landlord, get this fixed, otherwise I'm not paying my rent. In fact, what happens if the Opera House or the Lido say we don't pay our rent? Well, it doesn't really help them, because it means you've got a building there sitting there doing nothing, as we've got. So we need some joined-up thinking. We need pots of money to be put aside before, and we've heard about the emergence and the potential for these pots of money in the island plan from developments that are going to be put through. And I've always thought that in some ways you can link that to the percentage for art. Possibly that's just one way you do it. But you also need lots more money than that. So when a new development comes forward, when people are making money hand over fist on new developments because of rezoning, you say, okay, a certain tranche of that money is going to be put into these pots, and it will be made available for these kind of repairs in future. That's the kind of challenge that the next government and the next Assembly, I believe, have. We can, of course, support this wholeheartedly today, but we mustn't expect that this is going to be a magic wand to fix all of those systemic problems that we have.
Very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition?
Sir, may I clarify part of my speech?
Technically, Deputy Taddy must give way so you can afford a point of clarification to your own speech. So
I'm happy to give way. Finish, sir.
Yes.
It was just, I misspoke earlier on, sir. Deputy Ward is quite correct. I did say political oversight group when I should have said steering group, sir. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak. And I close the debate and call upon the Connétable to respond.
Thank you, sir, and I'm grateful to members for keeping the debate relatively short, although I think some contributions were probably longer than mine. I'll just pick up on a few points that were made in answer to the questions. First of all, I welcome the Minister's commitment to finding a solution to keeping the toilets open all year round. That's a really important point, as Senator Pallett mentioned, and he has, of course, experience of cold water swimming that puts all of us to shame. I'm disappointed that he didn't commit to getting the lease in place. I mean, this is one part of the proposition which is very important. There is currently no lease, and that means that in this fine weather we're having, the kiosk, for example, is not open to serve the public. And I think it's really important that if this proposition is accepted, that a new 9-year lease is placed in front of the tenant as soon as possible, with reasonable break clauses that you would expect in any other commercial lease, so that we can get this show on the road. I think it's also important to mention that various members spoke about the funding, and clearly the stability of this venue in terms of being well managed by the tenant and overseen by a steering group which is there to tackle issues that arise. That stability will be very important in its future, not only in getting those bookings coming in from islanders and visitors, but also in attracting potential sponsorship. And I think this is the kind of high-profile building that, if it is actually working, will be one that's attractive for people to sponsor. So I think it does have a bright future. I want to thank Deputy Martin and Deputy Labby, who are absolute stalwarts of the Half Depart Improvement Group, for their support. They turn up to our meetings. They recognise the issues that the community has in the area, and particularly in respect of the Lido. And I'm grateful particularly to Deputy Labby, of course, who is very concerned about heritage. And indeed, this is an important heritage building, and there is no question that we must do all we can to protect it and to invest in it. Senator Parrott reminded us that there is an important sporting side to this. Of course, so many islanders learn to swim at the pool, at the Lido, as I call it. I think Deputy Raymond was the only person who prefers Lido, but I think probably both forms are allowed. Deputy Morrell was concerned about costs. I'm not aware that the entire external render needs replacing. It's the first I've heard of it. Indeed, I've been told that work on the render was done a couple of years ago. So, but clearly, if that needs to be done, then it must be done, because there's no question we cannot let this building fall into the sea. And I don't agree with him that this is a short-term proposition. I think the fact that a steering group will be set up by the states going forward is a long-term commitment to this building. Clearly, what happens in terms of funding does depend on what states members bring to successive government plans. I'd also point out that Havre de Pars probably has one of the longest running resident and business improvement group that I'm aware of in the island. It was started back in the day by Senator Routier, so it's been running for over 20 years. So there is a long-term commitment by the community in Havre de Pars, and it would be good to see that reflected in some government prioritisation. Senator Mesic referred to the village improvement scheme that was funded by the parish a couple of years ago now. He gave no particular reason for reading it, but I'm grateful to him for doing so, because it allows me to point out that, of course, the set of improvements for Havre de Pars has yet to be picked up by government, and there is no better body to do that than the Regeneration Steering Group, which I have been badgering for the whole of this term of government to put some money into this kind of regeneration, rather than preferring to spend their time on prestige projects, which has clearly dominated most of the agenda time of the RSG. And certainly I would say that if I am in the next assembly, I would want to see the RSG committing far more of its time and resources into real regeneration on the ground in places like Havre de Pars. I think, sir, that probably covers most of the questions that have been raised. I thank members for their support and ask for the appellant.
Vote is called for. Invite members to return to their seats. Senator Gorst, are you wishing to speak? Members return to their seats. I ask the greffier to open the voting, and members who are participating remotely to vote in the usual way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their vote. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. Proposition has been adopted. 43 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions. We now come on to accommodation for temporary workers, P62, lodged by the Deputy of St. Peter. The Deputy, you've lodged an amendment to your own proposition. Do you wish the proposition to be read as amended?
Yes, please, sir.
Do members agree that the proposition may be read as amended by the Deputy's own amendment? Very well, I ask the greffier to read the proposition as amended.
The states are asked to decide whether they're of opinion A, that appropriate sites in the island should be identified and made available for the provision of temporary accommodation to house between 200 and 500 temporary workers. B, to request the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture and the Minister for Treasury and Resources to initiate discussions with Jersey businesses in order that potential sources of private funding for the provision of such accommodation may be identified. C, to request the Minister for the Environment to issue the necessary instructions, including any law drafting instructions required, to ensure that planning permission may be granted to an application for the construction of such accommodation, provided that any such permission will be granted on the basis that the accommodation will be used for a maximum of 3 years. And D, to request the Council of Ministers to establish a departmental investigation into longer-term solutions for the housing of temporary workers beyond the use of temporary accommodation, with a view to a report on the options available being presented to the next States Assembly in December 2022.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a real problem, and I lodged the proposition and subsequent amendments to try and alleviate it. This major issue was highlighted to me by Jersey Business, and my findings and subsequent digging and listening are articulated very clearly in an open letter received by everybody in this Assembly from GR8 Recruitment and supported by Jersey Hospitality and the Jersey Care Commission. It is obviously difficult to be exact with numbers, but saying that 1,000 beds are required across all sectors, including hospitality, care workers, retail, construction, is not an unreasonable claim. Sir, without these migrant workers, we cannot deliver the key services this island needs. On the surface, we have seen restaurants opening at reduced capacity, some closing 3 days a week. However, nearly all operating reduced opening hours. We see retail businesses, including those offering essential services like pharmacies, working reduced hours, indeed opening on fewer days in the week. Due to the shortage, we don't see the excessive work and long shifts those who are here endure. We don't see the 12-hour shifts with no break is uncommon. We don't see the stressed and tired care workers who are so devoted to their task that they won't leave their patients when no one is there to relieve them. We don't see the accommodation many are in today. I'm afraid I haven't either, because my profile, they are too scared to show me because of potential repercussions. What I do know from my research is the suggestions I make will be better options open to many today. We don't see that when they work for a specific employer, their permit is linked to their accommodation. And should they wish to move employers, they need to find alternative accommodation. That is not always available to all employers, and they must therefore compete with the current housing stock to find suitable accommodation. What is in it for these workers? It's simple. They do the numbers. They look at the cost for return flight and any visa costs. They look at how much they're going to earn and what their costs will be, accommodation potentially being the biggest. They consider healthcare, but that's a different debate altogether. They then calculate how much money they will return home in their pocket and decide if it's good for them. To many coming from afar, some leaving their hometown for the first time, it's a big decision. More importantly, it's a big risk. It is essential for our future as an island that the experience they have is a good one, so they return to us for another season and ideally recommend us to others. I fear our reputation isn't good. May I cast members' memories to the experience of the Russian farm workers a few years ago, whose employment was cancelled after 3 months. Yes, we fixed it, but it left a sour taste in the mouth. Yes, we've had COVID and Brexit challenges. The island seeing an estimated 35% reduction of European workers in Jersey remaining or returning, or new workers being able to come and work. However, it is still apparent that we need beds. It's clearly laid out in the email we all received, as I've mentioned. You will note the support on BBC News on Monday night. You will have seen adverts looking for non-qualified accommodation and estate agents receiving regular inquiries. We must ensure we have enough beds to lay their tired heads every night, and we must make sure they feel appreciated and respected. So how did we get here? Some will remember the days of the 70s and the 80s when we had 30,000 hotel and guest house beds. Tourists came and mostly took full board. All these hotels provided staff accommodation. Then there were very few restaurants, and the culture of eating out by locals and tourists alike was very different. Those working here during the season, needing alternative accommodation who didn't have quaddies, rented in one of the 800 lodging houses. Fast forward to today. We have about 10,000 hotel beds. The well-established hotel groups provide staff accommodation, but the new hotels like Premier Inn and Radisson don't. Accommodation is outsourced. Tourists and visiting business people come here to enjoy the huge variety of the number of excellent restaurants we have. Restaurants, bars, coffee shops, etc., and small retailers, care agencies do not have the wherewithal or the deep pockets to buy accommodation, and they should stick to doing what they do best and not become reluctant landlords. We now have less than 200 lodging houses, and this number is continuing to decrease. There has been a 180-degree change in our hospitality and service industry. However, there's been almost no strategic decision by any recent government to address and support this major swing. Historians will probably correct me, but all I can find is some political activity in the early 90s. I believe the Public Health Committee reviewed this in 1990. There was a Code of Practice review for lodging houses and staff in 91. In 1994, a survey of lodging houses and staff accommodation. Apart from that, absolutely nothing. We have drifted into a desperate situation. I always resist using the word crisis. And I'm beginning to learn about Jersey politics that something is only done when the situation is absolutely desperate. I have therefore brought this proposition to the Assembly as something must be done now. Now the detail. The absolute crux behind this proposition is to give businesses the confidence to invest their time and money in finding a solution, in the knowledge that the outcome is likely to be successful. I cannot stress this enough. It is purely to enable and facilitate and encourage businesses to find that solution that doesn't disrupt the rest of the market. After all, we have provided industry with a work permit process to recruit and retain staff. Now we must address the fact that these workers need somewhere to relax, rest and sleep. Government has acknowledged the need, but we've only addressed part of the solution. And this proposition provides the perfect opportunity to complete the picture. Why it is perceived by council ministers and social media that this is a request for government funding is a mystery to me. This could not be further from the truth. We as an Assembly pass piecemeal propositions and really appreciate the consequence. As in my report, we see what is actually happening. The RECOM report says we should be sorting out accommodation for locals before this, a sentiment I can agree with. But the market is taking potential properties off the market and converting them into staff accommodation. I hear of cases of 4 or 5 bedroom homes, family houses that we need, that have been most affected by house prices being sold for staff accommodation. We are approving planning for ex-hotels and guest houses to be converted into small flats. Yes, we must build for more for our local population. I've spoken often enough on balancing supply and demand in the market, but this desire is having consequences on other parts in Jersey. No staff, no service, no one will want to live here, which will sort the houses out, won't it? Our businesses are great. They are run by talented, clever people. They will do whatever they can to survive, thrive, and give a great service. They are finding solutions. They are unearthing workarounds for themselves. These workarounds mean they are doing what they can to secure bed space for themselves. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. This proposition merely gives them wider scope to find more beds, alleviate the problem, and remove business needs to disrupt other stressed areas of the housing market. I urge you all to get out to our businesses and do some listening. Our reputation is blockers of initiatives, and I take my hat off to all the businesses and entrepreneurs who succeed in spite of our best efforts to the contrary. They don't want any money. This will all be delivered by private investment. If you read Part A, B and C, it is absolutely clear that this is to ask ministers to listen and support a business case for investors aimed at alleviating this urgent problem. I thank COM for supporting D, which is to put a long-term plan in place, and I'll be taking D as a separate vote. Whilst this works towards a long-term solution, which we really, really do need, we must still focus on the here and now. I have mentioned some sites, and members will note I remove reference to green fields in my amended report. I mention ideas. These are not recommendations. This is for the board chaired by Lee Madden to ascertain and present to appropriate government bodies for approval. I have suggested the bunker bin solution. I've also suggested temporary conversion of an office block. This proposition is not prescriptive. It is solely to give confidence to private investors to be creative. Come to the government with ideas, with the confidence that they are likely to be successful. Sir, the irony is in the spring of 2020, we broke many of the rules that the ministers in their comments paper have used recommending the Assembly votes against this proposition, when in the space of 10 days they approved the Nightingale Hospital. It was a good decision at the time, and fortunately wasn't needed. We need the same attitude today, only this will be needed from day one. The irony, sir, is that the comments paper acknowledges the problem, and I quote, will set in progress work to develop options, etc. Sir, this is needed today. Business wants to deliver solutions today. And as to quote Lee Madden on BBC on Monday, we need to oil the machinery and adapt policies. Businesses are suffering, Brand Jersey is suffering, and most importantly, the great people who come to our island and support us are suffering the most. And all this is within our gift. So I move the proposition.
Is the proposition seconded?
It is, yes.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. I just want to speak briefly because when I read through this proposition, I did identify with a lot of the problems that the Deputy has identified, and I think it's really important that members are able to put forward ideas when they identify a problem and not just waiting for government. So I do applaud the Deputy for kind of thinking outside the box, as it were. But I think the word box is pertinent because when I clicked through on some of the information that was contained in the proposition, in the report accompanying the proposition, and the type of accommodation that the Deputy is talking about just doesn't look like it's designed for humans. And I couldn't imagine anybody really living comfortably in that type of accommodation. And it does make me wonder, the workers that the Deputy wishes to house in accommodation like this, as to how he actually views those workers. They're not just units of production, they're human beings and an essential part of our island. And I don't think I can support this proposition because everybody's entitled to have a window to look out of at the place where they're resting at the end of a working day, whether they're a permanent resident on our island or a temporary worker. And I just think we need to ensure that we're treating everybody with the same levels of humanity and respect, regardless of their roles on our island. So I'm afraid I can't support this proposition.
Deputy, does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? If no other member wishes to... Deputy Alves?
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to make the point that
Recently, I've come across a few issues with constituents who are currently living in what's traditionally non-quals. I can't remember the new name for it. I get confused between them. And they are finding themselves in a position where these lodging houses are being sold or are being sold, and the sellers are able to deregister them from being non-quals, and I've had to try and support constituents in this and look at solutions while the pool of non-quals is forever decreasing. And I just want to know why. I wasn't aware of this, and I think that this is something that really needs to be stopped, actually, because whether we like it or not, okay, our inward migration is going to decrease because of Brexit and obviously now having permits tied to that. However, we do still have people who, before Brexit, are not going to qualify for at least another, 8 years? So with the pool ever decreasing of non-qualified, why is this still allowed to happen? Why are these properties allowed to be deregistered? I think this is an area that needs to be looked at before we even look at this kind of thing of what the Deputy is proposing. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Ash.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to support this. I feel in many ways it will be doomed to failure. One of the reasons is it's a solution, sir, and we're not very good at solutions in here. We're very good at problems, very good at finding problems. We're good at labelling them with all sorts of labels, but when it comes to solutions, people don't like them. I was pleased to hear Deputy Alves talk about lodging houses, and I did mention that yesterday. And the disappearance of many of these lodging houses is the reason, or one of the reasons, that we do have a problem now with accommodation, because they accommodated an awful lot of people. But when you look back to those days, when people were living in those accommodation, they were able to go out, they were able to go often to the pub, and they were drinking at a third of the price of when they lived in the UK. So as young people coming over, they were quite enjoying life. You can't do that anymore. You pay more than you would in the UK, but that's just a hobby horse of mine. Many of those lodging houses, and I don't know if Deputy Alves remembers them back then, but they were not really fit for human habitation. Many of them had 10 beds in one room. I remember when my mother had a shop in town and she spoke to one of the young girls who was working for her, who was consistently late, and she said, well, I have to wait to use the bathroom, and there are 30 of us who use one bathroom. And my mother at the time thought this is rubbish. She went along, she checked this out, it was 100% correct, and she complained to the authorities, and in fairness, the authorities took action. But that was the sort of thing that was happening, and thank goodness today we don't really see that. As far, you might, I don't. And we certainly don't see it to the degree that was going on then, and a lot of it now would be illegal due to fire regulations. What we are asking here is to put in place accommodation, decent, clean, sanitary accommodation where people can live in. And when people say, oh, you can't ask people to live in there, students in the UK live in halls of residence all the time. They go over there, we send our children from here to good, clean accommodation with a bed, with a shower, with a desk. If they've got the money, they can put a TV in it. And it's good, safe accommodation. That's what people are looking for. If you come here for 8 months, you have a decent, clean, safe place to come back and sleep and lock up, you're fine. And if it's reasonably priced, all the better. And that is what Deputy Hewlin is trying to do. When we closed all these lodging houses down, quite correctly, as I said, no one thought to put anything in their place. No one thought, we're closing down these lodging houses, let's build units of studio accommodation where people can go and live when they come over here to work. And as someone said, what we then end up with is people having to share houses, which then reduces the housing stock. So this is a good solution. It's not a permanent solution, as Deputy Hewlin has said. It is very much a temporary solution.
Deputy of St Peter.
Sorry, the Deputy of St Peter, sir. Makes him sound more grand than he is, but I will acknowledge him as the deputy of St. Peter. He is not trying to find a solution initially. Initially, he is trying to find something that we can put in place that will get us to a permanent solution in 4 or 5 years' time when we can actually build some proper seasonal accommodation, if you like. So let's put this in place now. Let's give the businesses and the people who are coming to work here some sort of hope, some sort of support, and then we'll work on putting a proper solution in place 5 years down the line. But let's solve this one now. We have a chance to do it, and let's do it. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Young.
Thank you, sir. Part C of the proposition requests the Minister for the Environment to issue instructions, it says, law drafting instructions, to ensure that planning permission, this is the word, may, it says, be granted to an application for the construction of such accommodation, provided that it will be subject to a 3-year limit. Such accommodation, what does that mean? Well, I'm reminded when I first came to the island in 1979, I wasn't paid very much, so I did the census. And in them days, you actually went round. You went round searching, knocking on doors, finding people. It was a shock to me. It was a shock in those days, in the early 80s, to see the accommodation that people were living in. I was really, I've never forgotten it. And this was people living in sheds, in back garden, working. This is what the industry used. Now, fortunately, there were good employers who provided decent staff accommodation for their people, knowing that they're valuable assets, but there were plenty of employers that did not and relied upon this. And of course, it was a scandal. It was a scandal. And I remember there were numerous investigations about the standards of accommodation, featuring, I think, I may call in national newspapers. So what did we do? We decided to try and improve standards of accommodation. And I think in the 90s, well, certainly in the 90s, we introduced decent building regulations because the building regulations were not adequate. The building regulations in those days spoke about people having wells, would you believe? There was nothing in there about fire precautions. There was nothing in there about electrical safety. There was nothing interested in there about amenity space and ventilation and light, nothing. And there were appalling buildings going on. Now, thankfully, those days, I believe, are now behind us. Our building industry has become exemplary, I believe. I've watched the standards of our building industry dramatically improve over the last decades. And I don't think our building industry is interested in building down to a low standard. I really don't. And would this be in the island's best interest? No. I don't believe it is. Now, the deputy sites, well, we allowed the Nightingale Hospital. I did sign a ministerial order allowing permission for the Nightingale Hospital. And when you think of the circumstances when we were told the number of people were likely to lose their lives and how the hospital facility would be overwhelmed, for me, I was satisfied entirely. I did not hesitate. This was a case where a national emergency required us to break the planning rules. And it meant that development went ahead. It meant that neighbours did not have a chance to make representations about what was being done next to them. And I think, but thankfully this was done by government, and I believe our infrastructure team did their best to procure that development and minimise the effect of what is, I think, would be called a planning busting regime. And I'm sorry to tell the Deputy, his proposal here is planning busting. Absolutely, unequivocally. I want nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it, because I believe the Deputy in his proposition says there's an owner of an office block that is suitable. Now, I ask, if that is the case, why don't we have a planning application to do so? And if it's done in accordance with proper standards and amenities, and what is the problem? Because any brownfield site, anywhere, there can be change of use applications, but they just have to meet proper standards. So why hasn't that happened? I ask. I'm looking forward to hearing the Deputy tell us about that. I don't believe there's any block in the Bridging Island plan that stops us allowing such changes of use. But if they meet the proper standards, but proper standards do include amenity space, fresh light and what have you. It doesn't mean living in little sort of cells like you see in other communities. You don't want to be, but it does. But why doesn't that happen? And so, well, I interpret this I think maybe I might have to ask for guidance on this word may, because if that said shall, I think that would be ultra vires, the planning law, to give the minister an instruction, to issue instructions that planning permission shall be granted. It says may. But I still really, I just cannot support it. We do need a due process. Now, in terms of I've seen a couple of pictures of the units, and frankly, they look horrible. I'm sorry to tell you, that's my lay view of it. And we've just passed the planning policy to talk about island identity. We've talked about island identity, we talk about placemaking. And tonight I'm going to the design awards with the architect. We're going to talk about how we can work together to make Jersey enhance its built environment. So are we going to go down a road like this? I ask. Look, if government wants to support this industry, and I absolutely understand that, it's open to government. The government owns land itself. Government can promote its own schemes and do it to a decent standard and make them available to businesses if they are. I wouldn't oppose that. But that's a choice. But, what we're being told here, so I'm seeing all sorts of gesticulations going on, so it's rather distracting, I'm sorry. If government wants to do those things, then yes, let government do it and do it properly. What's being said here, that we've got private businesses who want to bypass the planning system and come forward with a list of sites. Well, why don't they put in planning applications then? Why don't they do it? That's the proper way to do it. Rather than at election time, bring a proposition here for a piece of electioneering. So I don't go with this at all, sir. It undermines the planning system. And of course, there's the minimum standards regulations. I think, throughout my period as minister, I've worked to try and achieve effective standards of minimum standards of residential accommodation, but of rented. And of course, I find it rather ironic that a lot of the opposition has in fact come from those that represent the lodging houses. I think that's the case. And therefore we haven't been able to get in place the full measures which my successor will need to bring forward. So it must be right, though, that if lodging houses that are currently there are substandard, that they're being converted into decent residential accommodation. That's why we're losing them. And isn't that right? Isn't that what we want? Now, if that's created a gap, then let's have a structured approach, which is why the only part of this proposition I can support is part D, because a structured approach to this problem, working with the industry and government, and it means government again putting its money where its mouth is, and I accept that probably has to do it because there are economic gains in having a healthy private sector in this area, to provide that temporary support. I mean, after all, we pumped into how many millions during COVID? 100 odd million to the private sector. So why do we approach it in this way? I think probably I don't really need to say any more. I probably sparked enough challenge. So I'm going to leave it at that. I will support Part D, but I'm sorry to tell you, look, it's right that the problem is brought here, and if this debate results in at least government setting down a process to get the answer and work with industry and support it in a structured way that doesn't have all the downsides of the things that I've spoken of, then I think that is a positive outcome. And hopefully, if that's the result, the Deputy will see it as such. Thank you, sir.
Some people are indicating they're concerned I hadn't noted them for speaking, so just to say, listed to speak so far, Senator Moore, the Connétable St Peter, Deputy Tadier, Deputy Gardner, and Senator Ferguson. So, Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. I was grateful to the Council of Ministers for providing comments on this proposition, and I would like to start by saying I entirely agree with the comments of the Council of Ministers. So hopefully that can focus the debate on the important matters. I have considerable difficulty, as does, it appears, the majority of the Council of Ministers, in inviting people to contribute to our economy and work on our shores, but then to isolate them in windowless ghettos. We should pride ourselves in offering a great quality of life and full enjoyment of our island with those who we share it with. And as the previous speaker, the Minister for the Environment, outlined in his speech, there are alternatives available. It has been made very clear to government that there are a number of offices available for conversion, but I do agree with the Minister that without those applications coming forward, it does somewhat make things difficult. Personally, I was very grateful to the Assembly, or to the Minister, for agreeing to include in the Bridging Island plan proposals for flat pack housing to be included in our building control systems. I have been talking to a company who are ready and willing to import flat pack homes to the island if the right sites can be made available. And invitations have been made to planning officers and to ministers to go and view these homes so that they can have a good understanding of the quality that is available in them and the swift approach that can be delivered, because this is the swiftest approach that I believe we have available to us. But I hope that private enterprise will look at those opportunities and work together to identify the appropriate sites and deliver some solutions. Because hospitality, of course, and this is where the very difficult part of this debate is, hospitality does need solutions. For the reasons that have already been outlined. And I fully support them in trying to find those solutions and have indeed attempted to do so thus far myself. But sadly, I cannot support this proposition.
Thank you, Senator. Connétable St Peter.
Thank you, sir. I agree that we face a problem with accommodation for workers coming to the island, but I cannot support this proposition other than Part D. We recently spent 2 weeks debating the island plan, and I believe that would have been the correct forum to discuss the rezoning of areas on which workers' accommodation could be located. The proposition would also circumvent our planning process, which is not acceptable. However, is more accommodation actually the total solution? I spoke with a licensee yesterday who told me he has accommodation but cannot find the staff. I would prefer to see our planning department and Jersey Property Holdings working together to establish what government property is available to address this shortage and to directly assist in finding a solution. The government should be playing its part if it wishes to continue to attract the migrant workers who are essential to our economy. Westerway Court is one potential example, and I'm sure there are other buildings that the government own that would be suitable for conversion. The delivery via private enterprise does not sit easily with me. Should we really allow significant profits to be made from migrant workers who, as I have already stated, are essential to our economy? As Deputy Doublé stated, some of the accommodation suggested does not look like it is actually suitable to accommodate workers in our industries here, although photographs can be deceptive. There would also no doubt be requests for the accommodation to remain after the initial 3-year period. In Kent, actually in Canterbury, I have seen student property recently constructed that is far superior to the container accommodation that has been suggested. It is not the same. Also, I have seen in the same area large building sites, which for a limited period have accommodation on site under the control of the developer and not a third party. For all of these reasons, as I have said, I cannot support this, but will support Part D. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Connétable. Deputy Tadier? No. Deputy Gardner?
Thank you, sir. Okay. I would like, sir, to ask myself as I was listening to the speeches, and especially the Environment Minister, myself 4 questions. Do we need to have seasonal workers coming to Jersey for limited time to support our hospitality and agriculture? The simple answer is yes. Do we need to give them affordable accommodation, as they really do the calculation how much money they will take back home after 9 months here? And this is the most important thing for them. They want to take this money back home to buy a flat, that I've been told like last year, and the answer is yes, they want affordable accommodation. Do this accommodation needs to meet minimum standards? Yes, they do. Do we want to keep available house stock for the local residents and not disrupt the market? Yes, we do. Do we have a solution currently? No. And it's important to what's really the Deputy of St. Peter bringing solution. We don't bring good solution. We are not practical somehow. I'm coming from, so I came from the business, and I feel that we are talking and talking and talking and not bringing solution. And it's not perfect solution. It's really not perfect solution. And what really struck me, again, we have a backbencher. I mean, Deputy St. Peter brought this proposition as a backbencher. Obviously, it's important to understand that it's not perfect solution. It cannot be. And we have a fight. This is government responsibility. This is private business responsibility. This is somebody else's responsibility. And for me, the answer is it's everyone's responsibility. We cannot continue to work separately. It doesn't work. We are talking, but we are not providing solution for the businesses, for the residents, because it's from both sides. and I understand, and unfortunately, as the time is pressure, I find myself agreeing with the comments of the Council of Ministers, because I don't think this is the government purely task to identify its sites. And I don't think it's the government to find sources of the funding, but maybe it's, I think if the paragraph A and B was to create a joint group, because we have private sector, we have government, we have residents, we have different parties, to bring them together around one table, to go through all options and to find the solution. So I will struggle to support part A, B, C because of the reason that I mentioned, but we have to move forward. And I hope by December 2022, we will have a plan in place and not another review. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Tardieu, do you want to be added to the list of those wishing to speak?
Yes, apologies, I got caught short.
I understand, yes. The older one gets, Deputy, the older one gets. Very well. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister recently went to Poland to look at modular apartment building. The standard looked to be extremely good. We've got lots of states' land. You know, why are we looking at some? I agree with we need to get, you know, the private sector and the public sector together. But there is a solution. Why on earth don't we get together and do something for that instead of just going round and round in circles? No, I don't support this temporary housing, but I do support modular apartment building because these are very good apartments. They're well made, well insulated, and very quick to put up, and environmentally very friendly. So let's look at something like that instead of messing around with containers and so on. Thank you, sir.
Senator Conataba St John.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the proposer suggests that the standard of existing accommodation that's available isn't good. This is the same Assistant Chief Minister who repeatedly opposes any form of additional legislation for lodging houses and rental accommodation. Sir, I'm aware that the subject has been discussed for a long time. This could have and should have been included in the Bridging Island Plan debate. As others have said, what happens when the temporary period finishes? Will the land be returned to its former use? As the Environment Minister says, and others, redundant office space could be converted, and I'm aware that the hospitality industry identified potential sites many, many months ago, and these could and should have been included in the Bridging Island Plan. The government isn't being asked for funding. What is being asked is for us to bypass the processes. I've said in this Assembly a few times, sir, about governance, process. Sir, we're being asked to cast all of that aside. We need to follow process. Deputy Ash spoke about solutions, so I will offer a solution. What have we done to encourage local families to rent rooms to businesses and individuals? The proposer referred to the 70s and 80s. Well, sir, sadly I'm old enough to remember. In the 70s and 80s, people used to accommodate both visitors and workers alike. In the Isle of Man, a tax incentive is offered to incentivise people to rent out their accommodation for their very popular TT event. Why don't we do something similar? It could also provide much needed income for some people at a time of increasing costs, and it could also have potential of offering company to some of our lonely residents. Certainly in the care industry, there's an opportunity for live-in carers who are very scarce at present. Let's not forget, sir, the significant improvements made in the agricultural industry, and whilst recognising that there is further improvement that's needed, Thankfully, a lot of the accommodation is not recognisable in that sector to what used to be on offer. Sir, the Nightingale has been mentioned. Well, sir, the Nightingale was literally a matter of life and death. Whilst the current challenges are difficult, let's not kid ourselves that this is the same. It is a serious challenge, but it is not a life and death matter. Senator Ferguson spoke about modular buildings. Let's think about the Esplanade, the International Finance Centre. That's a modular building, sir. We could have put space there or elsewhere to build similar properties to student accommodation. We're not being asked to do that, sir. We're asked to do away with all of the processes. So, as with other speakers, sir, I will not support A to C, but I will support D. Thank you.
Deputy Sutton. Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. I was waiting for Deputy Tadier, but it was late, wasn't it? Here we go. Right, it says on my notes here, will be hard to oppose this. Somebody must have misinterpreted my lifelong aims. It's dead easy to oppose this. And what I want to hear today is some response in this chamber from the Chief Minister, because he's been accused of ignoring this problem of the Economic Development Minister. It would be handy. The Housing Minister here giving some response to this chamber might be useful, perhaps. I don't know what the rest of the members think, but I think that's pretty essential, because the Deputy of St Peter has criticised years of what they've been doing, leading this island in this particular direction. But the proposer very carefully went through the decision-making process that a worker might go through in deciding to come to the island, this island, or not. And he put it very simply. So the potential worker sits there and says, let's work out the cost of my licence, the cost of getting there, the cost of transport, the cost of how much will I get paid, what's my rent likely to be, blah, 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 etc. And they've worked it out, and they look at the numbers and they say, this can't be right. I can't make this work. I can't afford this either. Here we are, the free market finally coming home to roost. Power traditionally over employment has always been with the employer on this island. We set the rates, we decide how much you're going to get paid, and by and large, they've got away with it. It's less than many would like. It's certainly not a living wage. Oh no. A minimum wage, reluctantly dragged upwards, time and time again. Got news for this chamber. The economics have changed. The worker is no longer powerless. They're sitting there saying, I cannot afford your island. You don't let me live on your island. And I heard it today. It's completely ironic. Walking down King Street today, I heard a couple shout out, conversation between people who are 10 yards away. We're leaving. Top of their voice, we're leaving. Oh, where are you going? Back to Madeira. Can't afford to live here. Loud as you like. And that's happening all over the island. Time and time again, people are looking at the sums saying, cannot make this work. So it's relatively easy to me to pose this. When the model no longer works, you have to change the model. Like, you have to make pay and conditions better than they were. Sufficient that people can live here and do those jobs. We've already had to do that with our essential workers. Kew Court is full of people, essential workers, social workers, health workers, who are here on 9 months contracts. That's the model. Yes, the health minister, I would love to hear from the health minister, he shakes his head. I've knocked on doors in Hugh Court and met those very people. No, I'm just finishing a 9-month contract. Or I've just started a 9-month contract. I can't vote yet in your elections because I've not been here 2 years. It's happening. It's happened. That's the reality. That's who we're employing. And now the private sector comes along. Oh, crikey. Things have changed. The free market no longer works for us. Please bail us out. Sorry. The Deputy of St. Peter will have plenty of time in his summing up to deal with my trivial questions and prove them absolutely solid wrong, if he wishes, or attempts to wish. Fine. And finally, sir, the model is wrong. The state should be helping to fix it. That's not the case. Pay better wages and you'll find people come back. Your workers will be here.
Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. So to finish on that point, and I think Deputy Sutherland's maybe stolen some of my thunder, it's exactly that point. I think Jersey is now at the crossroads where, and so I sympathise with some of the problem that the Deputy of St. Peter is trying to resolve, and I know it's something that I've had conversations with the head of Jersey Hospitality about as well. So I think it's really important to understand that industry, even if the solutions are complex and varied. And we're at the crossroads now, I think, where we've had an expectation in the island that hospitality, certainly from the user's point of view as a Jersey resident, should be inexpensive. And that isn't really realistic anymore, I don't think. I think if you look at a comparable place, it's not comparable in every way. Jersey doesn't have mountains and it doesn't have chocolate or the watches or the clocks, but Switzerland, which is another finance centre which is fairly well advanced. And the cost of going out there, for example, I've typed it into Google, and it talks about an inexpensive meal costs 25 Swiss francs. That's £20. And it seems to chime with last time I was in Switzerland and just ordered a pizza, and it cost about £20. And you're thinking, goodness me, this is just an ordinary one. I could get it for a tenner in Jersey. And a meal for 2 people, it says, in a mid-range restaurant, 3 courses, is 125 francs, so £100, and that's presumably without the wine. And that's certainly, I'd say, maybe a good £40 more than it would be in Jersey. And I think there's been a desire to keep a low cost of living in the island, which has, of course, been based on low wages, sometimes minimum wage or slightly above that. And then we've seen that there's been a crisis now, especially in the hospitality sector, because people can't live here. It's been compounded by Brexit, no doubt by COVID, but mostly Brexit because that's a long-term problem. And I think the chickens are coming home to roost because the island, for good or for bad, or for indifferent, and it certainly I don't think is indifferent, is it spent so much time focusing its energy on creating one very successful industry that 3-legged stool now has got a very long leg on one side, and it's got an increasingly short second leg of the tourism and hospitality sector, and of course agriculture is the little leg, so it's one that you can basically barely sit on. You might as well just have one of those hunting chairs that you use when the deputy will know about when you go out shooting with your double in the estates in England. And you only need a one-legged stool, really. You sit on it, you perch, and you shoot your duck or whatever, and the faithful sausage dog will retrieve it, no doubt. Or mine would if he were better trained. When I look at the proposition, I think, okay, if we could create housing for 200 to 500, let's call them people rather than workers. Let's call them workers rather than temporary workers. So if we could have a magic wand and say, okay, there's a few blocks of flats here, or we've identified some housing where we can house 200 to 500 people, would we prioritise temporary workers? And that's not because temporary workers are not valued. I mean, they're essential to our economy. So even if we were to prioritise temporary workers, which temporary workers would we prioritise? Would it be hospitality sector? Would it be locums at the hospital? You know, who would it be education? Would it be social workers? Because we're crying out for social workers as well. Would it be care workers in the private care sector, in nursing homes? Because all of those areas we have, I don't want to overuse the word crises, but we certainly have recruitment problems and retention problems. And it all boils down to the fact that we have an increasingly expensive island where housing is very short. And of course, we've moved on from the time where, and I speak with some experience. I worked in the French Alps when I was 18, and I washed pots for 6 months. I worked 6 days a week, and in peak season, I did 12-hour days, probably more often 10 and 11. And we were housed by the hotel. It was a Jersey owner, incidentally. Former hotelier in Jersey owned this hotel. And there was staff accommodation within the hotel in the kind of attic area. And there were 2 bunk beds per room, and there were no windows. And that was fine. You don't complain, because when you're that age, you put up with it for a few months, and you retain your pay, and you can come back to Jersey with a few quid in your pocket. And you get to ski if you're not too tired on your day off, which is great. It's great for that. But I'd be interested to know what the equivalency is in Jersey. Are we going to have, and I know it's possible, of course, to build the idea of halls of residence. That's also great. But if we can build good, it can't work both ways. If the accommodation that is built for the temporary workers is good quality, therefore, it's going to cost quite a lot to build, isn't it? I mean, there's going to have to be some kind of subsidy if it's made available to them to live in. And if it's that good quality, why don't we just make it available for the backlog of people that we've got on the Andium housing list? And as we know, the backlog, which I suspect is it's always been about 400. It might be more now. That's not even the real figure, because there are people in the private sector who also need to be housed who don't qualify for that. So the point is, we've got fundamental problems, both in the unqualified work sector, and what it means is that, going back to the Switzerland argument, is that they don't have a problem in Switzerland getting people to work in restaurants, because locals work there because they're paid properly, and then they can afford, you pay for the meal that you get, you might leave a tip, you might not. But the wages that they're paid are sufficient to live in Zurich, in Geneva, in Bern, or wherever you are. The wages that somebody is paid in Jersey, in that sector, is not sufficient to live, even, I suspect, in one of the bed-sits in a lodging house in St Helier. So therein lies the problem. So I think I've accidentally shut the proposition down. If we look at part A, I've dealt with that. Part B essentially asks the Minister for Economic Development to start talking to those in the sector, hospitality sector. Now, I don't know why it's just in the hospitality sector, or why it's not to talk to the Health Minister or to talk to the Social Security Minister about how housing might be provided for those type of temporary or more permanent employees. And the point is, Part B, I guess, is something that the Minister can do already. But again, I would ask the mover of the proposition, where's the hand of the free market in all this? How's that working out for him? Because normally we have certain politicians asking for less interference from government, not more of it, and not wanting to belittle any of the serious problems that the industry faces, is that why isn't the industry getting together themselves? Why isn't Jersey Hospitality coming together to identify sites that they could form a consortium for and look at potential empty properties? And the other idea, of course, is that in the past, people used to live above where they worked. So if you've got a pub in St Aubin, for example, you've probably got a few flats above it. And what do? They're going to rent them out to permanent people in Jersey, probably for quite a good price, rather than having to subsidise the wages or the accommodation of their staff, which is what they used to do effectively. And there may not have been sufficient accommodation to do that, but it would come with a package. So there is a school of thought which says if you want to employ people to come and work in the island temporarily, then you house them. make sure you've got somewhere for them to live before they come over. And I know that's before we even start talking about agriculture and where you put people to work in the agricultural sector, which is perhaps less of a problem because there is already pre-existing accommodation of varying qualities that I've seen, sir. And so I wouldn't particularly want to be an agricultural worker in Jersey with some of the conditions that I've seen them working in, sir, and living in, sir. But I know that that can vary. So then I take it to part C, which, looking over my colleagues, is to request the Environment Minister. Yeah, this is the part that really concerns me. Thank you. It's effectively saying the Minister will issue planning permission for these temporary units of accommodation. That's the way I read it. And so we're asking the Minister, he can't even do that with the hospital, for goodness sake. If he can do it with temporary workers, just do it with the hospital. The government wants to build a hospital high on a hill. I'm sure there's a song in there somewhere. We've already had the Swiss analogy, so there must be a song, High on a Hill was a lonely hospital. And there's a yodel that follows. But Minister, just give the permission for that. Just give permission now for the hospital so we don't have to worry about it anymore, and we'll deal with the other absurdities that come with that. So there are serious issues that concern me here. That's not to say that we can't all get our heads together to talk to hospitality, agriculture and find some of the problems, but some of those problems are fundamentally systemic. And we need to rethink our relationship with cheap labour in the island, about cheap labour, where it comes from, what rights they have when they're here, and what the prospects are for local pre-established people to not just get into the labour market, but also to live here affordably, as we've quite rightly heard from Deputy Southern. It's not just people in town who may not be from Jersey who are saying we're leaving, we're going back. It's people who are born in Jersey saying we're leaving, we're going to the UK where we can have a good quality of life. We can buy something outright, have a little bit of money to show for it, or at least we can rent something reasonable with a garden, and we can have money in the pocket at the end of the week, at the end of the month, sir. That's not what happens at the moment.
Sir, point of clarifications. Sir, point of clarifications.
Point of clarification. Do you give way for point of clarification, Deputy Teddy?
Thank you. In his speech, the Deputy referenced Switzerland as some sort of workers' utopia. I was wondering if you would like to clarify that Switzerland actually has a poverty rate amongst its working population of over 4%.
Well,
20%. That's fine. Has the Deputy spoken yet, sir?
He has not spoken yet,
okay.
No.
So I think the Deputy can clarify and expand on that. But I don't know whether 4% is what it is relative to Jersey. I don't know what our poverty rate is in Jersey, but I know a lot of people struggle. It's probably, since he's asked me to clarify, I think...
I think you've just said that you can't clarify, so...
What I can say, sir, I don't know what the rate is in Jersey, but I know that it's much more. It would be in the double figures of the amount of people in Jersey who struggle to live day to day, even people in well-paid jobs who at the end of the month find themselves in debit rather than credit, and they'd probably be quite happy working in somewhere else where they've got a better quality.
I'm not sure that's a matter of clarification, Deputy, so perhaps I'll move on. Connie Tarver, St Mary.
Thank you, sir. If we cannot supply accommodation for our residents at a reasonable cost for a given standard, how can the service industry employees be expected to be housed in similar accommodation at what is a very unaffordable price? People who come to work in this island on a temporary basis do so for economic reasons, to make money to take home. They do not want to spend that money on accommodation. They are happy to have a base, a roof over their heads. As long as health and safety requirements are observed, what is the problem? This idea solves a major problem. If temporary accommodation can be supplied for immigrant workers, it takes the burden off our island accommodation to be used for island residents until we can provide enough housing for them to buy. I will support the proposition as it benefits our island. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? I'll just make a note if any members wishing to speak. Well, at least 4 members have indicated a desire to speak. The time is practically within a...
So may I propose the adjournment in that case?
There we are. I was hoping somebody might say that, and yes, the adjournment is proposed. Now, before the State stands adjourned, as you all know, there's a photograph to be taken, and I think I noticed Deputy Morell straightening his tie, so I don't think it's absolutely imminent, but there is a photograph to be taken, and I believe that we move on to organising the photograph straight after we rise. I don't see any cameras or anything like that about, but I think it happens pretty well straight away. So if members will bear that in mind, and we stand adjourned until 2:15.